Councillors, can I have your attention, please? I welcome you all to this meeting of the Cardinia Shire Council and declare the meeting open. Due to the current COVID-19 restrictions, this meeting is being held virtually and webcast live over the internet. On the matter of COVID restrictions in place, I encourage any residents that may be affected by the current restrictions to refer to the Council's website. There is a raft of information available that may be of assistance to you. So I will say the following prayer and reflection. We will commence the meeting with the following reflection. I would ask those gathered to join us now for a few moments of silence as we reflect on our roles in this chamber. Please use this opportunity for reflection, prayer or thought to focus on our shared intention to work respectfully together for the well-being of our whole community. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. The Cardinia Shire Council respectfully acknowledges that we're on the traditional land of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. First of all, to everyone listening, unfortunately we had some technical difficulties, so we apologise for the late starting of this meeting. And at the moment, Councillor Cameron's got some IT issues, so hopefully she can join us very soon. Councillors, are there any apologies? I can't see any. I believe every other councillor bar Councillor Cameron, and we hope Councillor Cameron will join us very soon once her technical issues have been resolved. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to the minutes of previous meetings. Councillors, can I have a motion, please, to adopt the minutes of the previous meetings listed in the agenda? Please, councillors, can I have a mover? Please show. I see Councillor Ryan first, seconded by Councillor Moore. Thank you, councillors. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour, please show hands. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on. Councillors, are there any declarations of any interest that you wish to declare at this point of time? If there are any, can you please indicate, please? I cannot see any councillor wishing to do so, so we'll move on. Councillors, moving on to ordinary business. The council conducts its meetings according to a consent agenda. Councillors have advised of the matters for consideration this evening that they wish to discuss or debate. The remaining items will be adopted without discussion. So the items withdrawn for tonight's proceedings are as follows. Moving on to item 6.1.1, which is the annual report 2020 to 2021. And I do note that Councillor Cameron has joined us. Thank you, Councillor Cameron. This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Kowalczyk. Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the recommendations found within the report, numbered 1 through 5.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Ross. I note you as seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll go to the mover, Councillor Kowalczyk, to speak to the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Owen, and thank you also to Councillor Ross for seconding. Cardinia Shire Council presents the annual report 2020 to 21 to the community as required by the Local Government Act 1989. The annual report provides the opportunity for Cardinia Shire to communicate to the community its achievements and challenges of the past financial year. It is the final progress report against our previous council plan 2017 to 2021. Presented in 3 sections, the report of operations, the performance statement and the financial statements, it reflects council's performance from the previous financial year. Some of the highlights noted within the annual report, which have been spoken to previously by all councillors, include the commencement of construction of 2 new integrated child and family centres in Ricks Road Officer South and Timbertop Officer, the commencement of planning and design for a new youth centre in James Street, Pakenham, a new pavilion and facilities at Comley Banks Recreation Reserve Officer, the new pavilion and sports and oval lighting, upgraded netball and football pavilions at Kiwi Recreation Reserve, as well as the Emerald Netball Facility and Pavilion. It was also very nice to see a member of Council's Called Advisory Group, Susan Toomuc, and her family on the cover of the annual report. Susan is a leader within the Pacifica and wider community, and we thank her for all of her hard work this year. Congratulations, Susan. It's important to also mention the financial statements as one of the Audit and Risk Committee members. Council's finance team has been commended on the quality of its reporting and the Council as a whole for its overall position at the end of the financial year. The following extract from the report is particularly relevant. Council's financial position remains sound, with the Victorian Auditor General's Office providing an unqualified audit opinion on the financial and performance statements. The annual report fairly represents Council's operations, financial position, and Council's performance for the 2020 to 21 financial year and the impact of COVID-19 during the reporting period. From an accounting point of view, an unqualified audit opinion is outstanding. I want to thank SLT and all officers for their contributions to the report, as well as my fellow councillors. I'll leave it there, as I'm sure there are other councillors who wish to speak to this item. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Ross, to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk, for moving this motion about the annual report. I must say this document, compared to what we used to have years and years ago on council, is an amazing document. It's been reworked to the point where it's now an easy document to read. It has the highlights in there. It's actually got a bit of colour to it. I can remember the first ones I looked at 13 years ago had no colour at all. Complete black and white. Was really, really boring to read and difficult to understand. This is presented in an amazing way. It's very easy to read, and I'd encourage anyone who wants to know a little bit about what council does and all the things we do, just have a look at the annual report. That will be really, really helpful. And I'd just like to thank the people who designed it and put all the hard work into it that makes it so readable for the community, because as councillors, we know the information inside it, but we need to present it in some sort of way so the community can understand if they choose as well. Anyway, I just would recommend anyone who wants to have a look to go and have a look at that. You can get hard copies too if you request that of council, so we can make that happen. Anyway, I'll pass over to the rest of my councillors and back to Councillor Jack so they can share their outlook on it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillor wishing to speak to this item, please indicate. Before I go to, I can't see any others. Before I go to the mover to sum up, thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk, for introducing this item, and Councillor Ross. I've just got some brief comments, please, councillors. So despite the significant impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, we progressed and finalised a number of key strategies and projects. We continue to deliver essential services to our community and achieve results across all areas of our council plan. The Imagine Cardinia community engagement campaign saw over 1,600 community contributions and the formation of the Imagine Cardinia People's Panel. This community feedback informed and guided the formulation of our council plan 21 to 25, including the Community Vision 2040, as well as related draft financial documents, including our council budget 21 to 25, our financial plan 21 to 31, and the revenue and rating plan 21 to 25. Cardinia Shire Council provides a broad range of community services, programs and activities, as well as infrastructure renewal and development to promote, develop and improve the well-being and prosperity of our growing community. We work with all community members, from newborn babies and young people to families and seniors, across business, industry and non-for-profit organisations. We are committed to building a sustainable Shire for present and future generations to enjoy. We work with the community and continue to balance the demands of meeting our financial responsibilities and addressing identified challenges, such as managing growth while maintaining our diverse and rural communities. Council delivers a diverse range of activities and initiatives, each of which contribute to achieving Council's vision as set out in our Council plan. The plan does identify 5 strategic objective areas: our people, our community, our environment, our economy and our governance. So thank you, councillors. I do want to repeat the comments from previous councillors. I want to thank the staff. It is a really great document. I love the way it's been compiled, some really great photos of community, our members, and it just really highlights what council is doing in this space. So well done to all the officers involved. Well done to everyone involved in the People's Panel, and I look forward to, obviously, in better times, not too far away, that we will promote all that work, this plan, the community vision, our actions, etc. So I really look forward to that date, possibly in December, I think. So thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, to sum up this item. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Owen, and thank you also for your comments, and thank you also, Councillor Ross, for your comments and also providing some of the highlights of the annual report. I think it's really great to see, and people watching at home can obviously tell that the council are pretty passionate about the annual report. So the Shire of Cardinia's annual report for the 2020 to 21 financial year has now been formally presented to council. This is intended to be read by the community, so if you are interested in council's business, performance or reporting, please ensure you grab a copy and read through. The preparation of the report meets all requirements of the Local Government Act 1989. The annual report was submitted to the Minister for Local Government on the 28th of September 2021 in accordance with the Act. And finally, this is the final year that the annual report will comply with the Local Government Act 1989, as moving forward the report will come under the new Local Government Act 2020. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, for explaining the proposed changes coming up and the processes. So thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. Councillors, we'll put this item up to a vote. Item 6.1.1, the annual report 2020 to 21. All those in favour, please indicate by a show of hands. Thank you. Those against? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 6.1.2, which is the COVID-19 relief for recreation facilities, community and businesses. This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Davies. Thank you, Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council approves relief programs to support the Cardinia Shire business, community and sporting clubs, including credit for winter sport fees 2022 to those who have paid, and a waiver for those who have not paid thus far for all council-owned and managed sporting facilities. 2, a commitment to align our rent relief to the Victorian Government Commercial Tenancy Relief Scheme. And 3, actively promote vaccination throughout our community to increase vaccination rates in the community.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I note you're moving that. Can I have a seconder, councillors, please? Any seconder, please? I see Councillor Radford first. Thank you, Councillor Radford. I'll go back to Councillor Davies to speak to the motion. Thank you, Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Radford, for seconding. COVID-19 is continuing to have a devastating impact on Cardinia Shire's businesses and community. We as a council need to further support our community. Previously, Council has implemented measures including financial relief for sporting clubs and community groups, rent reductions for Council's commercial tenants, extensions to community grants, and waivers of Council charges, including registrations. There's also been an activation of a revised financial hardship policy to assist residents with the payment of rates. Mostly recently, Council established partnerships with service groups within the Shire to provide further outreach. But to provide further support, it is now proposed to credit for winter sport fees for 2022 to those who have paid and waive those for those who hadn't paid for all council-owned and managed sporting facilities. The estimated financial impact to council is $20,689. And secondly, to continue our rent relief to the Commercial Tenancy Relief Scheme. The exact cost is unknown and it is expected to be less than $20,000. Councillors, I consider these two actions to be a reasonable and necessary measure and it's achievable within our budgets. I do request that my fellow councillors will endorse this expenditure with me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Radford, to speak. Thank you, Councillor Radford.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Davies, for withdrawing this item. I too support the officer's recommendations, and thank you all council officers who have been involved to get this report done. It is really important that council shows leadership in providing COVID-19 relief where it can, and this will assist the Shire in its post-COVID recovery, and in this case, assuring that community and sporting clubs and businesses can reopen and be operative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this item, please indicate. See you, Councillor Springfield. Thank you, Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to reiterate my own support for this. We've got to do whatever we can to support our community and our sporting groups that have really had such a hard time with this. Everyone has across the year. So look, I'm just looking forward to next year being a better year, seeing community sports get back up, see our kids and our adults that get involved in community sport, but especially for our young children who really, it's so hard for them to understand what this means on a worldwide level. So everything we could do to support these groups. They run off the smell of an oily rag generally. So yeah, very supportive of this. Thank you, Mayor.
Totally support your comments, Councillor Springfield. Any other councillors? I see Councillor Moore first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Rowan. I'd just like to say that this is a very strong part of our community, these sporting clubs. It's the backbone of our community, really. And so we as councillors, I believe, are doing the right thing here in supporting that backbone and our community in this space. I'm not sure there's going to be enough to make them survive. I can only hope that things will change for next year when we have the sporting clubs open up again and get back to some sort of normality, I hope. But it'll be nice to see them come back and work in the future, and I hopefully this will see them prop up. That's a prop really to help them survive into the future. So I'm all for this, and I'll be voting for a positive result amongst our councillors. Thank you, Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other speakers? Before I go to Councillor Davis to sum up, I just want to reiterate the comments from previous speakers. Sport is so important, particularly for our young people, and to provide that relief for our sporting clubs is fantastic. I'm so looking forward to sport coming back and particularly supporting our young people. I really do look forward to that, and I welcome this relief. Also, I note in the recommendation that Council actively promotes vaccinations throughout our municipality to increase vaccination rates in the community, and this is something I 100% support. It is really pleasing to see that our community is getting vaccinated. I'm really pleased with Council how we've stepped up the promotions of getting vaccinated through social media, through a great campaign through the Star News Group. There was a great full-page ad last week with community leaders, councillors, really promoting that. Obviously, Star News Group as well, and I'm really pleased with that. And we're seeing these pop-ups, vaccinations, and I really encourage residents to really, if you haven't been vaccinated, please do so. But I really support Council's proactive approach to really promote vaccinations. 100% a support of that. So thank you, councillors. I'll go to Councillor Davies to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for your words of support. I confirm that I wish to move the officer's recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillors, I move, I put the motion of Councillor Davies, item 6.1.2, COVID-19 relief for recreational facilities, community and businesses, up for a vote. All those in favour, please indicate by a show of hands. Thank you. Against? I see none. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 6.1.3, which is the road discontinuance, Railway Avenue, Avonsleigh, Cockatoo. This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Davies. Thank you, Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council endorses the officer's recommendations and that Council, acting under Clause 3 of Schedule 10 of the Local Government Act 1989, sorry, I don't normally do this. Resolves that the statutory procedures be commenced to discontinue road known as Railway Avenue of Avonsleigh and being on Road LP 72623. B, directs that under sections 207A and 223 of the Act, public notice of the proposed discontinuance be given in the Pakenham Gazette newspaper. C, resolves that the public notice required to be given under sections 207A and 223 of the Act should state that if the road is discontinued, Council proposes to transfer the road to the Department of Environment, Water, Land and Planning, DWELP, for land conservation management, along with adjoining parcels owned and managed by DWELP, and D, authorises Council's property officer to undertake the administrative procedures necessary to enable Council to undertake its functions under section 223 of the Act in relation to this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. We note you're moving that. Can I have a seconder, please? I see you, Councillor Springfield, as seconder. Thank you. Going back to the mover, Councillor Davies, to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Springfield, for seconding the motion. So it has been recommended to Council by the officers that Council, acting under the clause of Schedule 10 and also in accordance with sections 207A and 223 of the Act, commence the statutory procedures to discontinue Railway Avenue in Avonsleigh. Railway Avenue in Avonsleigh is bounded by Wright's Forest and it's a paper road, a road that was designated on a plan in 1919 but never constructed. This road is not required for access now, nor will it be in the future. The road reserve is also heavily vegetated and may in fact have significant biodiversity value. DWELP, the State Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, owns and manages Wright's Forest and the surrounding land parcels and has requested that the land is transferred to them. And in 2019, a report recommended this and that it is ultimately included in the Yellingbo Conservation Area. I consider this is a very appropriate decision for Council endorsement action and I seek my fellow councillors' support on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Springfield, to speak. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Davies. As Councillor Davies pointed out, this is a paper road, so to speak. You might find it on a map, but if you go there, it's just going to look like bush and vegetation. And there is a number of these that exist within our municipality and across all areas of our state. But this one specifically, we need to make this legislative requirement here to change the legalities around it so it can be transferred to DELP so they can use it for a better purpose, which will be to consolidate this land for environmental purposes and to one day have this inclusion in the Yellingbo Conservation Area, which is something I'm very interested in myself. I've been part of the community reference group there since it was created a couple of years ago and look forward to this plan coming into action in the future. So it's great to see our state government through DELP, who are focused on our environmental assets in our localities and working to improve them for the better outcomes for the future. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Davies to sum up, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Owen, and thank you to Councillor Springfield for seconding the motion and speaking in support. I confirm that I would like to move the council officer's recommendations for council vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. So we put the item 6.1.3, road discontinuance, Railway Avenue, Avonsleigh, Cockatoo up for a vote. Those in favour, please indicate by show of hands. Thank you. Any against? I see none. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to the next item, 6.1.4, which is the special charge scheme declaration, Armstrong Road in Upper Beaconsfield. This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Springfield. Thank you, Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I would like to move the officer's recommendations as listed.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Can I have a seconder, please, councillors? I note Councillor Kowalczyk. Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. I'll go back to you, Councillor Springfield, to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is part of our program, our ongoing program of sealing the Dandenong Hills and the Dandenong Ranges. All to thank you very much to the federal government who delivered this money to us over a 10-year program of $150 million to see a number of our local roads sealed via the method of a special charge scheme. Every one of these processes for a different road network program has to go through these legislative requirements of the special charge scheme declaration. And this is one of those points that we have in front of us today, is the declaration of a special charge scheme. Again, we've been through this before, but this is an exciting thing for Upper Beaconsfield. This is the first one in Upper Beaconsfield, and there will be a number of them that will come along down the track. But I think it's a very great thing for the community to see the federal funding that comes to contribute towards this. Just to make a note, it's currently estimated that the road will cost $859,000, and the special charge scheme component from the residents will be a contribution of $94,500. So if you look at the summary of that, there must be about, off the top of my head, it's only about 15% of the entire cost of something that's contributed for this to be done. So I tell you, if I was living on this road, if I was living on a dirt road, I would be over the moon about having this proceed and be very supportive of it. So it's great to see the work that's been in the background from council officers to get us to this point, and I really look forward to this moving forward and hope to see the support of our fellow councillors tonight to allow that to proceed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Kowalczyk, to speak. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Owen. Thank you, Councillor Springfield, for withdrawing this item tonight. I believe you've covered it pretty well, so I will be brief. I think it's a good thing for the people of Upper Beaconsfield. I've got a lot of friends at Upper Beaconsfield, and I know that they're excited that this is starting to be rolled out in the area. So I think Councillor Springfield covered it well, but just the simple fact that only $94,000 is going to be contributed by residents from a total cost of $860,000 really shows the purpose of a special charge scheme and the benefits, the return on investment, and the economies of scale that can be derived of that. So I think it's a great thing, and it has my support tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I had to sneeze. Sorry about that. I had to leave the screen for a second. Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. Any other councillors wishing to speak? I see you, Councillor Moore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Owen, and thank you, Councillor Springfield, for withdrawing this. Look, it's really great to see the community get together as a partnership between the funding from the federal government and the result that the community is going to get out of this. We should have more of these within our community, I think, all over the Shire, and with this funding, it encourages our residents to get behind these schemes when the funding required from them is not as much. So it's a great result, I think, for that partnership, and it shows we're leading the way, I think, within our council to make these roads, this unsealed program's always been a real sore point within our council, and to see some of these positive results coming to fruition, I think is a fantastic thing. So it's good to see everyone working together, and well done all, and to the staff as well who have made this happen. It takes that to do. But thank you, Mayor Owen.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other councillors wishing to speak? Before I go back to Councillor Springfield, just want to obviously fully support the comments made by councillors so far. I just wanted to obviously thank the officers as well. A massive process, as the report says. There's so many stages to declaring a scheme, and The report does say 55% of residents supported it, but I think that's an understatement because of if someone has not responded, that's treated as not supporting. But we know that there was very minimal objection. I think by memory, possibly one formal objection. The rest was supportive or no response. So that indicates that there's strong support for this scheme, and I look forward to further ones in Upper Beak. As stated by councillors, I think this is going to be very welcome by the community in Upper Beak and residents, and to have that cap of 7,000 contribution is, and I appreciate there's payment plans and arrangements that can be made, but this makes it very affordable for residents thanks to the Australian government. So I'll go to Councillor Springfield to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And as you've noted, sometimes with these special charge schemes, not everybody is generally in support, but we try to have a process of engagement and education to really consult the community and to really outline what this means. And look, I will note that there's also a lot of provisions in place for hardship policies, and that we are in a time of, our restricted economy due to our the ongoing pandemic, which I don't even want to mention anymore. I look forward to a time when we can forget about it. So there is options in place for people. It's not that they're going to be held to account to be paying this up front for those that don't wish to afford, that can't afford it or don't wish to proceed. But I think in the long run, the long-term benefit they'll be derived from a $7,000 contribution in this day and age compared to what it would cost you in 5, 10, 20 years' time to achieve this outcome we're looking at before us. It is a sensible decision to make for the long-term benefit of our community. So I think it's great to see, and I ask our fellow councillors to support this tonight and look forward to seeing many of these proceeding over the coming years. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Councillors, I put item 6.1.4, the Special Charge Scheme Declaration for Armstrong Road in Upper Beaconsfield, to a vote. All those in favour, please indicate by show of hands. Thank you. Those against? I see none. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to the next withdrawn item, item 6.1.6, which is the Toomuc Reserve proposal to lease land to Telstra for a telecommunications facility. This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Davies. Thank you, Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor Owen. I move that Council 1 notes the submissions received in relation to the proposal to lease land at Toomuc Reserve to Telstra for a telecommunication facility. 2, authorises the Manager of Governance to execute a lease of 10 years with 2 further options of 5 years with Telstra. And 3, notes that officers will advise submitters of the resolution of Council and the reason for that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I note you're moving that. Can I have a seconder, please? I see you, Councillor Ross. Thank you, Councillor Ross. I will go to Councillor Davies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Owen, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for seconding the motion. Quality telecommunication services for phone and internet is absolutely essential for Cardinia's residents and businesses. Council was approached by Telstra to lease the land at the northeast corner of Toomuc Reserve for the erection of a telecommunication facility. Council officers have undertaken community consultation via public notice in the newspaper and on Council's website, placing a sign on site and sending a letter to each user group of Toomuc Reserve. Of the 6 submissions received, 3 are in support, and the objections focused on the appearance and visual impacts and health risks associated with electromagnetic radiation. Subsequent advice has been received that the facility will not indicate any risk of adverse health impacts. Telstra will also paint the tower in a colour that will help it blend in with its surroundings. This will be a first for them. A rental of $20,000 per annum has been agreed with Telstra, and this has been agreed on based upon the rates for other rentals recently agreed on in nearby locations. Telstra have agreed to annual 3% increases in the rental and will also contribute $3,000 towards legal costs for the preparation of the agreement. Council will allocate the income earned to additional maintenance services to the Toomuc Reserve. So I consider the assessment by Council officers is appropriate, and as such, seek a council resolution to adopt them. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I will go to the seconder, Councillor Ross, to speak. Thank you, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Davies. This is one of the bonuses of actually being in a growth corridor and having more people move in. You need things like more and better services to the community. These phone towers often get requested that the best location for them is on council land. And one of the bonuses on being council land instead of private land is instead of on private land where the individual gets the bonus of the rent for the lease, council actually gets that bonus. And in most cases, it goes back to the reserve committee to add to the maintenance amount of money that they have. And over the last 10 years, we had a fair few 10 years ago that were popping up, and it's good to see them coming back. And it's good to see that the bonus of these and the money spent for the leasing of them will come back to the residents. For anyone who has a look at our sporting and recreational areas, they're absolutely outstanding, and to keep up that maintenance is not cheap. And any extra money that can come from outside sources rather than coming through your rates is an absolute bonus. So anyway, next time you go to one of those reserves, I'd suggest you have a look around and look at what you're getting for your money, and think when you look at those towers, which are often out in the middle of the reserve, you know, they're going to help pay for the maintenance on that reserve to make it what it is. So anyway, thank you for highlighting this, and we'll look forward to seeing the maintenance that's done on those reserves coming from not the ratepayers, but from somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillor wishing to speak to this item? I see you, Councillor Kwasik. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Owen, and Councillor Ross. You must have used telepathy, because that is just exactly what I was going to highlight. Thank you, Councillor Davies, for withdrawing this item. I just wanted to thank the community for the 6 submissions received in relation to it, and particularly Phil Anning, as the president of the Pakenham Cricket Club, one of the key users of the Toomuc Reserve. And in response to Phil's question that was submitted, I think Councillor Ross has already alluded to it, but the report proposes that funds from the Telstra rental be invested into the reserve each year in a similar manner to other telecommunication facility rentals. These funds will be in addition to the standard maintenance contract at Toomuc Reserve to ensure the sporting grounds and facilities remain at a premier level. This is a good result for all residents of Cardinia, as well as the user groups especially, and the members of those user groups. We also know how important quality internet access is for businesses to work in 2021. Better access to 4G and 5G provided by these towers will help our residents work, learn and communicate. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasik. Any other councillor wishing to speak to this item? Just before I go to Councillor Davies briefly, I think I support the comments made by other councillors. The Victorian government is currently doing a bit of a review. It's called Connecting Victoria, regarding improving communications across Victoria, and our council has been heavily involved in the engagement of that. And can I ask, through that process, that these sorts of arrangements with council and council assets where the income goes back to the community instead of a private developer or a private property owner, where that just goes to them, that these locations be considered so that the revenue can be given back directly to the community via these sort of arrangements. So I do welcome council's actions in this. I will go to Councillor Davies to sum up, please. Thank you, Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillors Ross, Councillors Kwasik and Mayor Councillor Brett Owen for your support. I just am seeking Council's resolution to endorse the officer's recommendations tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. So, councillors, I will put this item 6.1.6, which is the Toomuc Reserve proposal to lease land to Telstra for Telecommunication Facility, up for a vote. All those in favour, please indicate by show of hands. Thank you. Against? I see none. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 6.1.7, the McKenzie Road Fire Access Track This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Springfield. Thank you, Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council endorse the following approach. That the status of the fire access track section of McKenzie Road remains unchanged, that appropriate signage be erected at either end of the fire access track section, and that works be completed to improve the surface of the track without amending the alignment or width to avoid any environmental impact or loss of trees.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Can I ask for a seconder, please? I note you, Councillor Moore. Thank you, Councillor Moore. Back to you, Councillor Springfield, to speak to the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Moore, for seconding this motion. Look, this is a good outcome we have in front of us today. This was going back from the last council term, one of the last meetings that we had of the last council term, could have even been the very last meeting, I think, where, you know, where we made a decision with council that, you know, all sizes don't fit all, right? It's not one size fits all. And it was an amendment to our fire access tracks. And the recommendation was that we have gates on all our fire access tracks, or a number of our fire access tracks across the Shire, was presented to us in a report. And I think that was appropriate for every other fire access track that we did put a gate upon. But this one, there was a lot of community engagement that came from this, that contacted us and said, this track is well used. And I think all of us councillors, I know Councillor Moore did, and yourself, Councillor Owen, we went and drove on this track and we had a look to it, and we realised that this was a better outcome to achieve. To not have to upgrade the road and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars removing trees to make it into a class 4C route or whatever. It was just, if we don't put the gates on, but we take a measured approach, a compromised approach, we can see the best outcome. And I think that's what we are achieving here today with the recommendations in front of us. It still will be possible for residents who have used this road for many, many years, and some of them have abutting properties that have their driveways onto this road. They will still have access to it, but it's very limited for the purpose of, if you're not one of those properties, you're not going to drive on it. It's going to take you twice as long as using the main road. So, you know, it's really is a good outcome what we have in front of us here. And I think this demonstrates council listening to community and community engagement to say, hey, this is what we really would like to see, us paying attention and trying to deliver the best outcome we can for these localised communities. So I think it's a great recommendation, and I seek the support of my councillors tonight moving forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Moore, to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Owen. Councillor Springfield, you really demonstrated what's involved in this process very well this evening. And look, I did drive this, and it was the last meeting we had. Correct. I remember it very, very well. It was a well-documented meeting we had about this particular item. I think we've really listened to these residents that live here. Yes, they have rear access to this road. I think the adjustment we're going to do to this road, I think, is going to make a lot of difference too. To make it to be able to maintain it, I think was part of the problem. Putting gates on sometimes is not the end result. It's not the greatest result. I live alongside a fire access road similar to McKenzie, and it's got gates on it. And it's become quite inconvenient to have it like that, particularly in the fire season is a bit of a concern here. So I can understand personally how those residents would feel under that circumstance. So great result. The signs up and all those sort of things. I think what we're doing in that place, I think, really addresses what we need to do there, and it fits both worlds, the council staff and the community. And I think that's what we have to do as councillors. We are the conduit between council staff and our constituents. So I think that's what we've done in this particular spot. So I think it's a great result in my opinion. But thank you, Mayor Owen. I'll go all for this.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other councillors wishing to speak this item? I see none, but before I go back to Councillor Springfield, can I say some brief comments? I do remember that meeting last September 2020 quite well, and when this item did come before the previous council, you know, we were discussing a number of fire access tracks and the proposed closure of some and signage and gatage and so forth. But this was the only one that I personally received many of emails of residents expressing concerns regarding the proposed closure. So I really like to thank the previous council who supported me, councillors who supported me in this alternate viewpoint and direction, which brings us before what we're debating now. But I think it's a great result, and I fully support the motion. Basically, not changing the status of this road, it remaining classified as a 4E fire access track and ungated. Appropriate signage will be installed, and completion of minor works expected to cost under $10,000 to enhance the surface within the existing track alignment, but are expected to substantially mitigate issues with vehicles using the track for occasional access. So part of this is that council will maintain the road, and I think that's probably different to what it was before September 2020. So I think residents will be really pleased with that, with more regular maintenance. And I just know by having this being able for local residents to traverse across will be something that they're really pleased about, and council's decision on this. A number of properties have accessed during this section of road, so that will be maintained. So I look forward to the improvement to the road surface and also ongoing maintenance, and this to be open, which the community up in Upper Beaconsfield was so passionate about last year. So that will make residents very happy regarding that, and I'm really pleased with the result too, if council support it. I will go to the mover, Councillor Springfield, to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And in summary, again, I think this is what's before us tonight is a good outcome of best practice from a fire safety aspect, which was the proposal of the fire access gates. And the gates are often on these tracks are necessary to keep people off from four-wheel driving, from ruining the track, so that when you do need them in an emergency, all of a sudden, you have limited access because of it. But we found a compromise here where we realised the best community outcome was not to do that, not to gate it, but to have it so it's going to be maintained to a level that'll be used by the community that does use it, as well as in these emergency situations. And further to that, I would just like to thank the council officers for their time they've put into this, because from that meeting back last year, we asked them to find the compromise. We said, we want to achieve this outcome. Can you please go and find a compromise? And Peter Banzik and his team in operations there, they did come up with this compromise, which is put before us, which is the best outcome for the community, I believe, in that area. So thank you again, Mayor, and thank you for my councillors for considering this motion tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I put this item up to a vote. Item 6.1.7, McKenzie Road Fire Access Track. All those in favour, please indicate by show of hands. Thank you. Any against? I see none. That's carried. I also want to express my thanks to officers. Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I've been in touch with them over the last 12 months regarding this item, and I appreciate for all their efforts. So thank you. Moving on to the next item, 6.1.8, response to petition requesting public toilet at Eastone Reserve. This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Kwasik. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following. 1, that council notes the request through the submission of a petition by the Cardinia Lakes Early Learning Centre for the installation of a new public amenity, public toilets at Eastone Reserve. And 2, council consults and works in conjunction with the Cardinia Lakes Residents Group in seeking appropriate community feedback to determine need and evidence for a new public amenity at Cardinia Lakes Eastone Reserve.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasik. Can I ask for a seconder, please, councillors? I see you, Councillor Radford, first of all. I'll go back to Councillor Kwasik to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford, for your second. I think the councillors will remember last month I tabled a petition from the community and the attached report has been compiled on the back of that. As a result of this, council will consult and work with the local residents association to determine the need and appropriateness of a potential new public toilet. I've received a lot of positive feedback on this subject and also one objection so far. This is just the first step in the journey to decide the level of community need for this amenity. There is a report attached to an upcoming item 6.1.12 from Parkscape titled Shire of Cardinia, which details some of the parks within Cardinia and recommendations for improvements. I note that 2 toilets are recommended for Eastone Reserve, which I hope will help inform part of the research and consultation. I want to extend a big thank you to the community members who have advocated for and supported this project to bring it to the table. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasik. I'll go to Councillor Radford to speak as seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, for withdrawing this item. Yeah, I do support the officer's recommendation here. I think Councillor Kowalczyk has covered that very, very well. I am pleased to see that council officers will work in conjunction with the Cardinia Lakes residents group in seeking more community engagement and feedback to see whether this amenity is required at this location as a result of Councillor Kowalczyk submitting this petition at last meeting. So that's very pleasing to see. So thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, for following this up on behalf of your constituents. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? I see you, Councillor Moore. Go ahead, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Owen. I'd like to thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, for highlighting this and bringing this petition to our council chambers and our table. That's what our job is. Our job is to do this and to listen to our residents and offer some assistance where we can. And I think through the Cardinia Lakes Residents Group, who's a great group of people, I know a few of them that are on that committee, and they are strong community people, and I can see they've got their heart in the right place to want this, because it's a long way. It is a long, where that park is, I know exactly where it is. It's not far from where I reside. That it's a long way from there to any other public toilet facility. And so you imagine anyone that was in a park like that, what were they going to do? Where are they going to go to? And I know these facilities are required in a lot of places all around our shire, but I think in that location, it's one of the things that I think hopefully will be supported. And the research comes back that it will be supported. So Councillor Kowalczyk, I want to thank you from the community for doing what you do, because I think it's a great result if it gets over the line, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? All right, I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Kowalczyk to sum up. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Owen, and yeah, big thank you to Councillors Radford and Moore for their kind words. I really do appreciate their support on this item, and I think they've spoken so glowingly about this because they're really good advocates for their community, and they understand sort of what it takes. Councillor Radford obviously has worked in this space before in the past, and obviously Councillor Moore's been a councillor for a long time, so I really appreciate that. I think Councillor Moore pointed this out, and it's something I wanted to highlight in summary, is that people do travel from around the Shire to exercise, to visit, to enjoy Eastone Reserve, and that's something that's a little bit unique, I suppose, similar to Lakeside in a way, in that it is out of the way a little bit, but people do travel there, and so the numbers that you get on the weekends are much more substantial than simply the residents that live around the area, and that's something the council needs to take into consideration when determining the appropriateness for a new public toilet facilities. Obviously from here, if this motion passes tonight, council will engage with and seek feedback from the Cardinia Lakes Residents Group. Again, I just want to pass on my thanks to the community for their engagement and excitement. It makes our job a lot easier to do when we have an active community supporting and engaging with us. I'd also like to encourage anyone within the Shire who hasn't been able to visit this gem to get out and enjoy all that it has to offer, because it really is a unique space. The old Pakenham Quarry, it's been there for a long time. All right, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. Councillors, I'll put this item 6.1.8, response to petition requesting public toilets at Eastone Reserve, up for a vote. All those in favour, please indicate by show of hands. Any against? I see none. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 6.1.9, which is the Growing Suburbs Fund 21-22 program, Cardinia Shire applications. This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Kwasik. Thank you, Councillor Kwasik.
Thank you, Mayor Owen. I move the following: that Council endorse the following list of applications under the 2021-22 Growing Suburbs Fund program in priority order. 1. Garfield North Community Centre. 2. Pakenham Main Street improvements. And 3. Eastern Dandenong Ranges Trail connection.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasik. Can I have a seconder, please, councillors? I see Councillor Springfield first. Sorry, I know there was others. Councillor Kwasik to speak as mover.
Thank you, Mayor Owen, and thank you, Councillor Springfield, for your second and support in this tonight. These 3 projects have been submitted to the Victorian Government's Growing Suburbs Fund prior to the deadline on the 13th of October, and we expect to know the outcome of this by December. Tonight, I'm seeking formal endorsement of this submission, which needs to be ratified by council decision. The total ask for these projects is $2.5 million. Now, I just want to quickly thank the state government for funding this program. Cardinia Shire, and previous councillors will know this, Cardinia Shire has been successful with applications in the past, and I hope it continues long into the future. Some of the projects which have received funding from the Growing Suburbs Fund include the Cardinia Cultural Centre expansion, Comley Banks, the award-winning Deep Creek Reserve Playground, the Gembrook Leisure Park, as well as child and family centres at Brunt Road and Ricks Road. All councillors have been involved in advocating for these projects, and it's nice to see a good spread around the Shire. The Pakenham Main Street improvements that are being submitted include streetscape upgrades for Main Street between John and Station Streets. The aim of the proposed upgrades is to improve physical access for pedestrians along Main Street and the overall functionality and visual amenity of the area. I get a lot of residents asking me and council to do more in improving the centre of Pakenham, and there's a real push in the community to breathe life back into this really special and unique town centre, which I truly love. This advocacy is a small part of that, and we will continue to push for this and ensure that Pakenham gets back to where it deserves to be. Thank you, Mayor. I'll go to Councillor Springfield. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasik. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Springfield, to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Kwasik. I fully support the recommendations noted within here. And just for all those state government representatives, I'm sure they're tuned in listening to our meeting tonight. These are some very worthwhile projects. So I think the committee that reviews these Growing Suburbs funds should definitely approve this for us. It's going to be such great community benefit, and all 3 of them. The Garfield North Community Centre, it came out of the Bunya bushfires, and the recognition that we didn't have facilities up there for community to meet and to gather, and how important it is to develop something that can then be noted for the extreme event that we went through a couple of years ago. So important for the community up there. The streetscapes of Pakenham Main Street improvements is going to tie in so nicely with all the level crossing removing project that's happening, with the rail line that's being elevated. It's really going to help tie this in, and I can't wait to see what Pakenham looks like in 5-6 years' time once these works are done. And last but not least, up in my end of the woods, the continuation of the Eastern Dandenong Ranges Trail would be fantastic. That'll pretty much span east to west of our Shire. Well, we go a bit further west into the Bunya State Forest, but to Gembrook, and you'll be able to walk from Menzies Creek to Gembrook along this trail once we make this continuation. And plus, it's a forebearer for this continued trail to one day exist within the Shire of Yarra Ranges. We hope to see us go from Belgrave all the way along the Puff and Billy line to connect with this in Menzies Creek and Clematis up to Gembrook. It'd be a fantastic outcome for the community. So thumbs up to all these projects, and hopefully we get this over the line. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I see Councillor Ryan is next to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Kowalski, basically because this is something that's important for all the community, but also all the wards that are involved with the community that's going to be interacting and using the facilities that will be on offer. It is exciting to see the projects developing, and I think that the main Pakenham Main Street, well, with the new superstation, that's been a long time coming. It's been quite dirty and disgusting, the station there, for many, many years. And I think the upgrades will not only enhance the services for our community to use and feel safe, but also encourage people to use public transport a lot more and not use their cars. And I also think that the Main Street and encouraging our cafes coming out more once the new Main Street's been developed. And again, that's a long time coming. And I know residents have been quite forceful in coming forward in making it very clear that when is it going to happen? Well, it's going to happen if this gets passed. So I think it will encourage people to come out. It's good for their health and well-being. It's also good for food products and shopping locally. So I will support this this motion on these three projects, and I think that they're a great project to be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Any other councillors wishing to speak? I see you, Councillor Ross. Thank you, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. For those who don't know what the Growing Suburbs Fund is, you really should know what it is, residents of Cardinia Shire. We've obtained tens of millions of dollars through this fund to bring forward infrastructure that wouldn't have been built out of ratepayers' money because we just couldn't have afforded it. And a lot of people in the past have sort of commented about the growth corridor and the problem we have because we have so many people moving in. Well, one of the bonuses we do have with the growth corridor is the fact that with so many people moving in, you can apply for the Growing Suburbs Fund, and the Growing Suburbs Fund has been shared around even to the areas that have a zero population growth. If you go over, as you go around the growth corridor, you can have a look at the playground at Gembrook. You can have a look at the Emerald Hub. You can go down to Cooey and have a look at the Bowls Club, which last year obtained 1.6 million to build a community pavilion at the Cooey Bowls Club. You go through and have a look at the sealed and shared pedestrian bicycle pathways. 2.6 kilometres of shared pathways came through the Growing Suburbs Fund. And you can actually look all through it. And as Councillor Springfield said about the trail, the Eastern Ranges Trail that we'll go through, they're things that we just couldn't have afforded to do, or we would have had to wait much longer for them to happen. So everybody does benefit in this. I can even remember when we got some money that came through and we finished up moving it down to the Bunyip basketball stadium, which is really about 10 years old now. But that came through the Growing Suburbs Fund, you know, and without that, so many communities wouldn't have benefited from these things. I must say it's a really hard task every year for council to come up with shovel-ready projects because there's so many of them that we could apply for. But hopefully if we continue to get $4 to $5 million every year coming through on average, that's the amount of extra facilities that we can build. Anyway, I just look forward to seeing what we get this time round. We always get something. Our officers do a great job looking for shovel-ready projects and projects that will get approved. So we look forward to this round this year, and in future we'll keep advocating for it to continue because we definitely do benefit from it. Anyway, thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors wishing to speak? I see you, Councillor Moore. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Owen. I'll be very fast here. I know we're short for time. I want to echo Councillor Ross's comments there about this, the Growing Suburbs Fund. I ask councillors, whenever they come across state members, hit them with the Growing Suburbs Fund to increase it, because I think we get such a great result in our Shire, and that's what having a growth corridor does. It gives us the money to the funding that we need, and then we can spread it around to other areas and out to where it's needed. I also want to acknowledge the Bunyip Complex Bushfire Recovery Committee to do with the this is the Garfield North Community Building. It's so needed. It was so acknowledged over the fires. The Toomuc Hall, the beautiful Toomuc Hall, don't get me wrong, is a beautiful hall, but it needed something more for the community to work through and to support that community that is still hurting, by the way, in that region. So to see something go and something new built in that area, that committee is headed by Tony Fitzgerald, who does a great job in the community, and I want to congratulate that committee for putting this up as an idea, and the staff for driving it to make it shovel ready. So all in all, we just need to get the suburb fund over the line. That's all we need to get. So if we get that, let's see these 3 fantastic projects built within our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. Any other councillor wishing to speak? I see none. Before I go back to Councillor Kwasik to sum up, thank you, councillors. I really enjoyed everyone speaking there in support of the applications, and I fully support these 3 projects. They all have merit. They are fantastic projects for various reasons. The Growing Suburbs Fund, as discussed by councillors, is so important for our council. From the mayoral level, this year we've been advocating to obviously the state government and through the interface group of councils that in the upcoming, for the state election and also upcoming budgets, that budget needs to be increased. We've seen the Growing Suburbs Fund open to not just interface councils but peri-urban councils now. So we've gone to the state government to say that bucket should be increased. Because these projects need to continue to be funded, and we welcome more funds. So you're right, to councillors, we take this opportunity to really advocate to our MPs regarding the importance of this fund and the projects. And I know we've raised that with local members in recent meetings, so I'll continue to do that. Just obviously the Pakenham Main Street. Really, I welcome those planned improvements, and this grant will go towards that. Also, that project will improve access for all within this precinct. We know some of the shops in Pakenham, you've still got to, in some of them, step up to get into the shops, and that's not really accessible for people with disabilities, and access is difficult. So seeing street improvements in our key Pakenham Main Street township will be very beneficial. And as said, thank you, Councillor Moore and others, regarding how important the Garfield North Community Centre is. Well said. Also, Councillor Springfield, I welcome this application for the Eastern Dandenong Ranges Trail extension. It really will complete our side of this great trail, and I know residents in the hills have been advocating for that. So thank you, councillors. I really loved that conversation and that debate. I'll go to Councillor Kwasik to sum up. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Owen. Thank you to all councillors who spoke to this for their insight and words of support. It's really nice when you have an item like this and everyone provides a lot of councillors provide input. It's really great and shows the support from whole of council. Again, I want to reiterate to the community that the total ask from Cardinia Shire is $2.5 million, and should the majority of councillors agree, the Garfield North Community Centre, Pakenham Main Street improvements and Eastern Dandenong Ranges Trail connection will be the endorsed submissions to the Victorian Government's Growing Suburbs Fund. I want to thank officers particularly for their work on these submissions and for helping us through the process, as well as the Victorian Government for their continued support of this fund. We eagerly await to hear the outcome of this, which will be sometime in December, we're told, and we ask the state for their support in getting these projects over the line. Thank you, Mayor Owen.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. Thanks, councillors. Councillors, I will put this item 6.1.9, Growing Suburbs Fund 21-22, Cardinia Shire applications to a vote. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. Those against? I see none. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 6.1.10, which is the review of council delegations. This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Ross, I believe. Thank you, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation that council under section 11.7 of the Local Government Act 220 note the current delegations that are in place and resolve no changes are required.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, can I ask for a seconder, please? I see you, Councillor Ryan, and others, but I note you, Councillor Ryan. I'll go to Councillor Ross to speak, first of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ryan. A little bit of background behind this. As required under the section of the Act, Council must review its instruments of delegation within 12 months after a general election. This report is intended to provide an overview to councillors and to the public on the current instruments of delegation to comply with the legislative requirements. And council is a statutory entity composed of its members, i.e. councillors, and it is able to do only those things which it authorises and statute to do. The sources of council authority can be summarised as power to do things with a natural person can do, in particular, the power to enter into contracts, and powers conferred by the provisions of 77 separate acts and regulations, such as Local Government Act 1989 and 220 and the Planning Environment Act. I won't bore people with too much information, but cutting it briefly, the new council needed to see and have a look and review just how council have delegations to make everything happen and who sits on those and whether they feel it's appropriate or not appropriate and whether it falls in line under under the acts and those 77 separate acts and regulations. And this report goes through that. Anyway, I won't continue anymore. It's there to be read. And I thank the officers for their work in this. I know this was requested by some of the new councillors in particular, even though it had to come under the Act, so they could learn who does what in our delegations. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I will go to the seconder, Councillor Ryan, to speak. Thank you, Councillor Ryan.
I'll just reserve my rights at the moment, Mayor.
Thank you. We note that. I'll try to remember that. Thanks, Councillor Ryan. I will go to any other councillor wishing to speak. Thank you. Any other councillor? I see you, Councillor Kowaczyk. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Owen, and thanks, Councillors Ross and Ryan, for withdrawing and seconding this item. I just wanted to briefly mention that Councillor Ross mentioned there are no changes to this, and that is true in one sense, in that there are no formal changes required to be ratified by Council. However, residents can rest assured we have all read this in detail, have discussed some potential changes, and there are some things being changed, particularly pertaining to town planning, just some items that come back for consideration to councillors. So we are well across this. However, these don't form part of the formal council delegation. So we have reviewed this thoroughly, and we're happy with how everything sits. So I just think it's important to communicate that to the community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. Any other councillors wishing to speak? Before I go back to Councillor Ross to sum up, I'll go to you, Councillor Ryan, if you wish to speak as seconder.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I have nothing to add to that. I think both councillors have covered what needed to be covered, so I'm in support of this item, and that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I will go to the mover, Councillor Ross, to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in brief, finalising this, people probably don't realise that the financial and resource implications connected to the delegations, in addition to the instruments of delegation mentioned in this report, Council has also delegated to the Chief Executive Officer the power to accept tenders for contracts delivered under the construction contractor panel established under Contract 2010 on the 14th of April 2020. Delivering the large amounts of roads projects under sealing of the unsealed roads in the Dandenong Range that surrounds. Council's Strategic Roads Program, intersection construction works, Council's Capital Works Program has been streamlined with the establishment of the Construction Contractor Panel and delegating the power to the Chief Executive Officer to accept tenders lodged for those works has provided further efficiencies in delivering these projects in a timely fashion. If we were to always wait, particularly in these times, for delegations that weren't fluent in a timely fashion, it would become really clunky, and it would take much longer to deliver on things which would naturally be delivered in time. So these delegations, in conclusion, are important procedural process to allow it to be efficient and effective functioning of council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, for summing up there. Councillors, I put this item 6.1.10, review of council delegations to a vote. All those in favour, please indicate by show of hands. Thank you. I see that. Any against, councillors? I see none. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to the next item, 6.1.11. Notice of motion 1604, gender equality. Thank you, Councillor Ross. You've indicated you wish to withdraw this.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation that council stays informed of Cardinia's commitment and progress towards gender equity within the organisation and the community in general.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Can I have a seconder, please? All right, I see you, Councillor Cameron. I note that you as seconder. I'll go back to Councillor Ross. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cameron. In brief summary, the people in the cultural team continues working together with the implementation of the Gender Equity Act. The gender audit requires have been finalised by the Commission, and are in the process of being undertaken by the people and cultural team. People Matter survey results have been delivered and are being analysed for inclusion in the Gender Equity Action Plan. Council always tries to keep these sort of things in forefront of our vision to do with our major managers, our CEO and our staff, to realise that we do want to be leaders in this area. We do want to give everyone a fair go, regardless of your gender, to make sure that we get the right people to do everything. So I won't say any more. I'll leave that to my fellow councillors. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. And I note there was a number of councillors wanting a second, but I call upon Councillor Cameron to speak a seconder. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will wait until everybody else has had a talk, and then I'll have something to say after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I note that you're reserving your right to speak at this time. I'll go to other councillors. I'll see you first, Councillor Radford. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross and Councillor Cameron for withdrawing and seconding. I just wanted to highlight from this report this month that Cardinia Shire Council was successfully re-accredited as a White Ribbon Australia workplace. So I thought that was really important to highlight from this report this month. I know the Shire has done a lot of work in this area, shown a great amount of leadership and commitment to drive this social change. I noticed Councillor Kowalczyk pointing to his little ribbon there, our white ribbon. So I just want to congratulate everybody involved in getting that re-accredited, and I think it's something that we should all be very proud of at Cardinia Shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. Any other councillors wishing to speak? I see you, Councillor Davies. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Ross for withdrawing the item for comment. I have mentioned previously at council that it's my observation that every woman has a story, and I would really like to acknowledge the tremendous work that is being done by our staff on this matter, and just emphasise that we're committed to best practice, but we're committed to living it, and so that includes our community and our organisation. And so Jenny Squickalina, a huge acknowledgement to her leadership on this, and pleasingly, the council's executive team, it's 3 out of 4 of the directors are female, and a female CEO, and it's unusual. I mean, 10 years ago, would you have had that? 20 years ago, you wouldn't. And I mean, my grandmothers, would they be councillors? Probably not. So I think change is slow and it's hard, and a lot of the evidence is that, you know, it's going to take us 200 years to really achieve lasting change. But I think that we can all be very proud of the work that our organisation does, and let's not be complacent. Let's keep going. So finally, just a huge acknowledgement of the efforts of the staff, because without them, this wouldn't happen. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Davies, for your comments and contribution. Any other councillors wishing to speak? I see you, Councillor Ryan. Go ahead, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everyone, and Councillor Ross for bringing this up on our monthly updates. It's really important that we acknowledge that gender equality is for all. It's not just for one gender, it's for all, of all different ages, all different trades, all different unique skills that we all bring to wherever we either work, live or play. And I think that's really important, that we've come a long way and we've still got a long way to go. But in saying that, I thank the officers for the hard work they've been working on, and this has been over the time that I've been in council, and I really appreciate the work that's been done, and will continually keep doing it. Unfortunately, you can't see my badge because I've got a white shirt on, so but it stands out in all the men's jackets, which is great to see. And I think it's important that you know, it ties in with the discrimination, the bullying and the harassment laws as well. So, and that's what with the white ribbon and gender equality is all about, is about equality for all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Before I go to Councillor Cameron as the seconder to speak if she wishes, any other councillors? I see none. I'll go to Councillor Cameron to speak as seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and I thank Councillor Ross for withdrawing this topic, and I agree with everything the other councillors, Councillor Radford, Davies and Ryan, have spoken about, and I don't think I have anything further to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Ross, to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you other councillors for sharing your thoughts in this area. I must say this area has really come to the fore in the last, I suppose, 10 years. It's quite amazing. I don't think on all the different organisations I've represented a council on, whether it's the Metro Waste Group, the VLGA, Interface Councils, National Growth Area Alliance, Cardinia Shire Council with our CEO, council managers. It always doesn't surprise me at all now. I think every single time we've had somebody leave or be replaced, they've been replaced by a woman who has been that outstanding at the interviews, you just wonder why they weren't in the positions in the first place. I just think it's outstanding that people now are starting to acknowledge that gender is not the most important thing when it comes to who you choose, because the people who are the most outstanding will stand up and they speak for themselves. And I must say, for a long, long time, a lot of females in our society were absolutely outstanding at what they did and had to work so hard to get where they got, and they just never had the opportunities. But now the opportunities are starting to come forward, and we're starting to see outstanding work in those areas. So I just think this is absolutely amazing. that we can be keep this in our forefront. I remember when I first got on council, and Councillor Owen can remember this, we were all male council. And I think of all the managers, we only had, I think, one who was actually a general manager who was a female, and it's all turned around so much. So that is well deserved, and I look forward to this space and see it continue to grow, and Cardinia Shire to be a leader in this space and an outstanding example in the community. I thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, I put this item 6.1.11, gender equality, up for a vote. All those councillors in favour, please indicate by a show of hands. Thank you. Any against? I see none. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to the next item, item 6.1.12, Landscape Standards Report. This item has been withdrawn by, again, you, Councillor Ross. Thank you, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I will move the officer's recommendation that council support current maintenance standards. They meet council's responsibilities and provide a balance between community needs and expectations, and council's ability to fund these maintenance programs.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Can I call for a seconder, please, councillors? I see you, Councillor Radford. I note that. Back to you, Councillor Ross, to speak to this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is something that I actually called for a couple of months ago, and it's because we needed a review of exactly everything that goes on in the Shire in relation to the maintenance levels that are done with our open space recreation areas, our open space, how often they're maintained, how often they're mowed, how often our contractors come and go from those. And also the cost it would if we increase the maintenance level on different areas. So what we needed a report that came back to council so everybody could make an informed decision about where we would like it to be in the future. I think during the COVID pandemic, we've discovered that so many people are starting to discover their own neighbourhood. Go for walks with their kids, rides, different things like that, and they're starting to notice what their neighbourhood looks like. So we're looking to see what the balance is in this area, and coming up towards a budget, we need to know what things will cost, what things might be able to change, what things look like at the moment. So hopefully, I'll cut it very, very brief on this. If people look through the report, they'll see what happens right at the moment. This wasn't what we thought was going to be extremely complex to get, because we already have KPIs on the work that gets done right now. So it was only a matter of gathering the information we already had and putting it in a report so we could actually get it. I hope fellow councillors find this really helpful. When the conversation comes up at the budget time, I hope that everyone will be well informed so we can look at the options. And I know in a democracy, as a councillor on one voice, but nevertheless, if you can, as Councillor Evans always said to me, you're only one voice unless you can get a majority. If you can get a majority, you can make things happen. So we'll see what happens. This is a really good report. This shows the community what happens in their area, and I hope that this will help my fellow councillors to understand a little bit more. Anyway, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Radford, to speak next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for initially instigating this report. I was all supportive of that at the time, and because it is important that we are ensuring that maintenance is being met and at communities' needs, and the budget is right. We're not overspending somewhere, underspending somewhere else. And so it was really good that this report showed that council was on track, and that there's no changes that needs to be made. But it is important that these reviews are done, and they are done on regular basis so that we are doing things as they should be. So I thank you, Councillor Ross, for instigating this report. I think it's been very useful, and the community will find it very useful as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? I see none. I will go back to Councillor Ross to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Radford. That was well explained, Councillor Radford, in relation to that we need to keep reviewing this, because as our population changes over the years and the expectations of the community and what they find important to them, their expectations about a livable community, we need to be just as pliable with them and try and move things in the areas where they would like us to improve things. Or, as was said, we might be overspending in some areas, underspending in others, and we need to work that budget a little bit better to meet the needs of the community. Anyway, I found this really interesting. I think it's something that really does mean a whole lot to the community, because they will definitely see the benefits with any adjustments, and we'll be able to have a look to see what we do right now. So whether it's okay at the moment and what the community thinks. Anyway, I thank my fellow councillors for allowing this report, and hopefully we'll be able to use it for some good works in future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. So, councillors, I will put this item up, item 6.1.12, Landscape Standards Report, up to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour, please indicate by a show of hands. Thank you. Thank you. Any against? I can't see any, so that's carried. Thanks, councillors. Moving on, we're getting through this, councillors. The next item is item 6.3.1, Contract 20-63, construction of the new My Place Youth Facility. This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Ryan. Thank you, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Moving this item 6.3.1, I'm supporting officers' recommendation on the contract 2063, construction of the new My Place Youth Centre facility.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Can I have a second to councillors, please? I see you, Councillor Ross, and I note there was others in the queue as well. Thank you, councillors. I will go back to Councillor Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The recommendations that Council award Allmore Constructions Proprietary Limited contract 2020 to 2063, construction of the new My Place Youth Centre facility for a tender pricing, including provisional sums of $5,131,675. This report provides recommendation for the appointment of the commercial builder to undertake the works associated with the new My Place Youth Centre facility contract. The facility has been designed to meet the applicable standards and considers Cardinia Shire Council enhanced standards along with the trauma form design principles. The tender submitted by Allmore Constructions Proprietary Limited complies with all the conditions of the tender, and their submitted tender price is best value and the most competitive for the project. The My Place facility was opened in 2012 and is located in the main street since then. It has been demonstrated that through the co-location of multi-agencies and disciplinary services, that an integrated and holistic approach to meet the needs of the young people provided best practice outcomes. The new use of, sorry, I've got a dry mouth, so pardon me for just having a drink. The new youth facility is increased services attraction locally for young people and families to meet both the current and future needs of the community. The services and programs delivered through the new youth facility support young people from the age of 12 to 24. The benefits for the services provided through the facility support young people to build resilience and re-engage in education, training and work improvement, their relationships and access to specialist services in a timely manner. To maintain the existing services as well as attract new services and programs locally for young people, a new facility will assist in fulfilling the expectations of the community as well as the demand of the provision of the community and youth services in Cardinia Shire. The new facility will be located in a parcel of council-owned land at 43 James Street, Pakenham. The location has an area allotted for the project of 118 square metres to accommodate an all over 140 square metres multi-storey building with associated landscaping and car parking. The new contemporary building will provide a design to ensure maximum utilisation of all spaces, providing a modern and vibrant young hub at the heart of Pakenham. The new design includes spaces such as waiting area, reception and office, consulting rooms, amenities and laundry facilities, consultation and classroom, training and program room, general practitioner room with associated intake room, computer hub, recording booth, a commute kitchen, a hangout space, active rooftop, creation space will include a barbecue seating area as well as a basketball hoop. The new young facility has been designed using informed principles. The method considers how the physical environment affects individuals, recognising that it can have a physiological and emotional impact and responses to creating supportive environments that this environment promotes physical, mental and social health. This approach creates a welcoming space for young people, families and professionals through the use of special materials, colours and visual throughout the building. And I'll leave it at that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan, and we'll be coming back to you to sum up very shortly. I'll go to Councillor Ross to speak a second first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ryan. What an exciting journey this has been for council and councillors, and I'm talking about predominantly Councillor Owen. I can remember when I first got on council, we had just invested in a bus, and that was the first use facility that we actually had, a bus that was made up. And it cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars so our youth team could go out to the community. At that stage, state government and federal government had no responsibility in the youth space. And local government, with the smallest amount of funds, we took up the challenge in Cardinia Shire because we knew as a growing suburb and a growing shire that the youth were going to need services to help them out. And on that journey, to cut a really, really long story short, we started with a bus where we went out to the youth and we finished up buying a kinder in the main street of Pakenham and refurbing it into my place. And to think that this is what it's come to now, where council will invest $6 million in a facility that will be absolutely take us into the 21st century with services that that the youth are going to urgently need, because, you know, everybody has battled through what we've gone through, will be just so timely. I just think it's wonderful that this council has taken on the challenge in this area. I must say, when I first got on, I saw Councillor Owen was banging away. He'd been there for one term for 3 years when I got here. And we were on with a whole lot of people who really didn't believe 100% that council should be spending that much money on things that weren't really our responsibility. But he was the youth resources officer in the police force, and he knew the needs of the youth. And this is something that's came about. Council has grown into this space and their responsibility. And I actually think we do an amazing job. And I've got something I'm going to share a bit later, but Emma Firth has been someone who's been there right from 2008 when I first got on council, and she does an amazing job and leads a team that is just so interactive and so got such a heart for the community. So I just want to commend this. This will be absolutely outstanding. This is a dream that's come about through people who had a dream a long, long time ago, and it takes a long time to fester. I just think it's a wonderful, good news story. And I'd encourage anybody, when it's finished up being built, if you wanted to, come down and ask them as a resident. You'll be really, really proud of this. So anyway, I just endorse it. I think it's wonderful, and I look forward to it being built. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I really appreciated the history lesson. It's really great to acknowledge the history of such a project. So thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors wishing to speak? I'll go to Councillor Kowalczyk first. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Owen, and also thank you to Councillor Ryan for withdrawing this item and Councillor Ross for his contributions. I mean, this My Place facility, obviously the contract's been awarded, and for those following along at home, we have previously been down this road before, only for the contractor to pull out at the last minute. There have been some changes to the original plans required to find some cost savings with regard to some of the furnishings inside, as well as the amount of rooftop floor space that is usable. However, I've been assured by officers that the finish will still be to a really high standard, which is so important when we're designing and building new infrastructure, particularly within Pakenham, who's really trying to change its reputation a little bit in terms of the facilities that we have in the main street there throughout the centre of town. I also just want to make mention to, rather than the actual look and feel of the building, on what My Place actually delivers. And I think Councillor Ross covered it off there, but it's also something that's really close to Councillor Ryan's heart, and that's the mental health of our local kids. I mean, this My Place facility, when it is up and running, will be so important to ensuring our kids remain engaged. It'll be also really important to ensure that kids remain at school, the education levels, as well as community safety. It's just really, really important that it all ties in. So I just want to reiterate to the community that this new facility will be an absolute game changer, and I just can't wait. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. Good comments there. Any other councillors wishing to speak? I see none, but before I go to Councillor Ryan, can I thank councillors for your comments? Good conversation and debate there. Long history, this site. This site where we're going to build this new facility, I'll put a timer on myself while I'm at it, sorry, has a long history. It used to be the old Pakenham Courthouse, that site, the old Pakenham Police Station. I think Councillor Cameron worked there, and I definitely worked there when it was a police station. So it was great that years ago, previous councils and councillors voted to support the purchase of that land. It's a great location in the centre of town. So well done to those councillors who had the foresight to purchase the land from the state government at the time. As part of this project, we're going to see the ceiling of that car park. No loss of car parking that's there at the moment. It's going to be formalised. Line marked, great. I know businesses, workers use that. We know people from the Senior Citizen Centre use that car park, so that's great as part of this project. But this facility is going to be so great for our young people. We know they've been involved in the design, what's going to be catered for our young people. Over the coming days, we're going to announce the new name for this youth facility. We had a competition. Two young people selected they were chosen. The two young people were chosen who will name this facility, and we'll announce that in the coming days. But great work. I spoke to them only last week, and they were very excited about what this new youth facility will do for our young people. They want those services, as talked about by Councillor Kwasik, that Councillor Ryan's been talking about. Our current facility is jam-packed. There's no room for any new agencies to engage and support our young people. So that's why one of the reasons why we're building this brand new youth centre, so we can attract additional services for our young people. So thank you for that, councillors. I will go back to Councillor Ryan to sum up, but I'm so happy and can't wait for this facility to be built. Back to you, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Thank you, Councillor Ross, Kowalski and Owen. This is exciting for me because working with the youth since I came on board, and before that, I was involved in the basketball and over at the old stadium. So, there were a lot of things happening with the youth. I think, having a lot to do with the youth in some of the projects they're involved in and the creativity that's coming out of them, just through my place and the staff, the supportive staff that's there. And again, talking about mental health, which is a very big passion of mine, and getting all services out there. A place for our youth to feel safe and feel important and build their self-esteem and build relationships. That's what my place is all about, but also building relationships with my place, coordinating, hopefully with our senior citizens, that the building's right opposite, and gaining the knowledge and skills from each other. We're all going to learn something from our youth, but our youth will learn something from our seniors and everyone else. The youth are really excited about this project, and it was a lot of fun watching them as to when I was making candles with them before we were in lockdown, in some of the thoughts to the name of the facility, it was we had quite a good laugh about some of the names. So it will be great in the fact that they're involved in what's important, that's going to have an effect on them. And being in Henty Ward, I'm really excited that, it won't be far for me to go to visit the youth again. But again, once we see this building established and the car park established and the youth settled, I think that's really important, because they do have a place that they can say that belongs to us. We're important. We contribute to the community, and we want to contribute more because the council has supplied this, and so has state in funding as well. So it's really important that the youth know how this has come about. So thank you. I'll leave it on that note, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. And before we go to the vote, I just want to acknowledge the other two levels of government that are supporting this project and funding that. So I just want to acknowledge that. Sorry, Councillor Ryan. And also want to thank the officers involved. So thank you, Councillor Ryan. So I will put this item up for the vote. Item 6.3.1, contract 20-63, construction of the new My Place Youth Centre facility. All those in favour, councillors, please indicate. Thank you. Those against? I see none. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to the next item, item 6.3.2, the procurement policy. This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Kwasik. Thank you, Councillor Kwasik.
Thank you, Mayor Owen. I move that Council adopts the new procurement policy as required by Section 108 of the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasik. Can I have a seconder, please? I see you, Councillor Radford, first. Thank you. I will go to Councillor Kwasik to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Radford, for your second. As stated in the report, the new Local Government Act 2020 requires all councils to prepare a new procurement policy for adoption by council before the 31st December this year. A full review of and alignment with the new Act was undertaken in collaboration with 11 southeastern councils. The policy will support the achievement of council's objectives of sustainable and socially responsible procurement, support of local economies, and obtaining value for money towards improved provision of services for the community. This policy has been reviewed by council's managers, the Audit and Risk Committee, as well as councillors. I want to thank the two officers from Cardinia who are mainly responsible for leading the charge in terms of the creation of this policy, and they certainly did that. They certainly led the charge. One of the benefits that comes from this collaborative work is that local councils don't have to continually reinvent the wheel when it comes to procurement policy. It also makes it easier for contractors engaging with councils to have the same engagement process and requirements throughout. This helps these businesses to efficiently engage with their clients and means they can operate with more or less the same game plan in terms of quotations and procedure. Some of my highlights of this new policy include the guiding principles of strategic procurement and value for money. Another, I just also want to mention that one of those key items that's listed in there is the need to source items from Australia first, if possible. So I think that's noted in the policy, and I think that's really, really important. It's nice to see that as a guiding principle within there. Another one can be found under the exemption section where this policy does not apply, and I'll tell you why in a moment. I'll just read it out here briefly. A contract made because of a genuine emergency or hardship, where the council or CEO has resolved that the contract must be entered into because of an emergency event, e.g. to provide immediate response to a natural disaster. Now, this is a very, very important exemption. It means that during a time of crisis or natural disaster, which is well known to those of us in Cardinia, the council or CEO can resolve to enter into a contract to provide immediate response. This means that whilst we sort of get the best of both worlds here, in that whilst we have best practice procurement safeguards in place, we as a municipality and organisation remain flexible enough to respond quickly in a time of crisis. Thank you, Mayor Owen.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasik. I'll go to Councillor Radford to speak as seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Kwasik, for withdrawing this item. I do support the officer's recommendation also. And I believe that Councillor Kwasik has summarised it very, very well, and so I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? I see none. Before I go back to Councillor Kwasik, thank you, Councillor Kwasik and Radford, for speaking to this item. I just do note that this draft policy did go before the Audit and Risk Committee, which Councillor Kwasik and I are on, and definitely the independent members provided some comments and contributed, and definitely this report does summarise those amendments, changes as a result of the Audit and Risk Committee's comments. So I just wanted to acknowledge that those were considered, and the draft has been amended to acknowledge that. So thank you. I'll go back to Councillor Kwasik to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Owen, and thank you to Councillor Radford for her second on this item. This new procurement policy is required by Section 108 of the Local Government Act 2020. Our council, Cardinia Shire Council, worked in collaboration with other southeastern municipalities to develop a piece of work that complies with all requirements of the Act, as well as providing surety and value to residents. The formal guiding principles stated within the Act, within the policy of strategic procurement and value for money, will hold our and other councils in good stead into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasik. I will put this item 6.3.2 procurement policy up for a vote. Councillors, all those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. Against? Any against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. We're getting there, councillors. 2 hours in, we're getting there. We will go to the next item, 6.3.3, contract 21-31, pavement renewal works 21 to 22. This item has been withdrawn by Councillor Davies. Thank you, Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council accept the tenders submitted by Downer EDI Works Proprietary Limited to undertake the works associated with contract 21-031A pavement renewal works on Hine Road in Pakenham Upper, Pitt Road in Iona, McDonald's Track in Lang Lang, Railway Avenue in Tynong, and Soldiers Road in Lang Lang and Caldermead for a contract sum of $2,355,918.14, excluding GST, and R&C Asphalt Paving Proprietary Limited to undertake the works associated with contract 21-031B pavement renewal works on Lakeside Drive in Emerald be accepted for the contract sum of $462,670, excluding GST.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Can I have a seconder, please, councillors? I see you, first of all, Councillor Springfield. I will go to Councillor Davies to speak to the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Owen, and thank you, Councillor Springfield, for seconding the motion. I have withdrawn this as they are significant sums of money and to provide public comment and exposure to this road work. These 6 roads under consideration have been identified as high priority for treatment. These are amongst our highest for maintenance costs. So it has been recommended tonight that Council endorses 2 contractors to undertake the works to reconstruct pavement on 6 roads. And the proposed works include pavement rehabilitation and construction, drainage improvements, and associated works. I have reviewed the tender evaluation report, which is confidential, and I am confident that a comprehensive assessment has been undertaken. The tenders were checked against a range of weighted and non-weighted selection criteria to ensure the viability of the tender submissions. The tender evaluation criteria include safety, risk, experience, insurance, compliance and pre-qualification. The financial viability and environmental commitments of the organisations tendering are also assessed. I am highly confident that the recommended tenders provide best value for money as well as being best work. So thank you, Mayor, and councillors, I seek your support tonight in endorsing the approval of the contracts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Springfield, to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Davies, for moving this recommendation. I fully support this, and I think it's wonderful news that we are delivering more upgrades to our road network within our Shire. And if you review this report, it's a great spread there. It's all these little pockets of roads that already have pavement on them, but it's renewal for this pavement because a lot of them are really under the weather. I've not travelled on all these roads because they are quite spread out across the areas of our Shire, but one in particular is just up the road from me, and that's Lakeside Drive in Emerald, and I've been advocating for this to be on the renewal program for a number of years now, due to residents contacting me several times over those years. So it's great to see this coming to fruition. Almost $3 million we're spending, but we're getting a lot of bang for buck for this. If you look at the list of roads and the kilometres that we're going to improve upon, I think it's great value for money. And again, it really adds to what we talked about earlier, the Sealing the Hills program. So many road programs, upgrades that we're delivering from this current term of council, which I think is one of the highest priorities we have in our council, or for myself personally, is improving our road network. So I'm fully in support of this, and thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? I see you first of all, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Owen. I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Springfield has said in this particular point, and I want to thank Councillor Davies for highlighting this item tonight. Really, it's really great to hear these roads and more roads in Cardinia Shire, and it's been a long time coming. One road in particular I do want to mention, though, it's not in my ward, but it used to be once upon a time, and that's Soldiers Road in Caldermead, where complex, that sporting complex, is up on the corner of Caldermead Road and Soldiers Road, and it's a skinny piece of bitumen road and very highly used, that area. So it's going to be such a final spot for that complex to have that road complete, and that's a link actually between the new reserve and Lang Lang itself. So I'm sure the residents up there will be over the moon with this result, and I am too, with advocating it all those years gone by. And it's great to see that particular one done in particular. But it's good to see all the roads done. I've got no doubt about that. But thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, councillors, got about 1,000 windows open. I'm trying to get through them. Thank you, Councillor Moore. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? But thank you, councillors. I just wanted to follow up Councillor Moore's Soldiers Road comments. And yes, I appreciate this road will help facilitate safer access from the town of Lang Lang to the recreation facility. But I also want to note that that project is fully funded by the Australian government through the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program, the LRCI. So a grant of $1.6 million was received. I note that the tender is under that amount, but we note that that is fully funded by the federal government. So I think that's important to acknowledge, and well done to council officers in nominating that project for funding. But that's great that is being funded through that grant program. And Hine Road in Pakenham Upper is being renewed, which is very important. It's a very important section of road there. So it's great to see that being renewed. So thanks, councillors. I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Davies, to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for speaking in support of this motion. I move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillors, I'll put this item up for a vote. All in favour, please indicate by show of hands. Thank you. Any against? I see none. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Well done. We got through that. Councillors, that concludes the discussion of the items withdrawn. There wasn't many items that weren't withdrawn, but councillors, may I have a mover, please, to adopt the officer's recommendations for the remaining items? Thank you, councillors. Can I have a mover for that, please? Sorry, I will note Councillor Kowaczyk, seconded by Councillor Moore. Councillors, I put that up for a vote. All those in favour, please indicate by a show of hands. Thank you. Any against? I see none. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to councillor reports. Councillors, this is an opportunity to update council and the meeting regarding any activities and any sort of things that you want to say in this space. So I'll go open that up to councillors to provide a council report. I'll go Councillor Radford first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to report on the October is Community Safety Month, and Council is running a number of free online workshops. I attended one. I know that Councillor Kowaczyk was at the same one that I had attended, but there's been a few. So we went to one last week called Online Safety Awareness. These online free events are run and hosted by Cardinia Shire Council and Pakenham Police. And I'd like to point out a particular council officer, Joe Campos, has put a lot of time and effort into getting these free online workshops organised and then available to the community to attend. So there are still a number that you can attend. If you go to the Cardinia website and go to events, you will see them. I'll be attending another one next week, which is called The Other Talk, focusing on drugs and alcohol and things like that. One of those tough topics that you might want to be discussing with your children. So yeah, look them up. And again, thank you to Cardinia Shire Council, Pakenham Police, and in particular Joe Campos for putting on these amazing workshops for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. Well said, and I've attended some of them. And what's really good is if anyone's missed them, the recordings of these sessions will be made available once all the sessions are completed. So thank you. Also, I went to one last week as well with the CFA, who ran about bushfire, getting ready for bushfires, etc., preparedness. So thank you to all involved in that. I'll go to Councillor Ryan to speak next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is really an important subject. I'm wearing a green ribbon, and the green ribbon has got mental health awareness. So it's Mental Health Awareness Month for the month of October. As councillors have also said that, you know, there are other many things on that are in October as well, but some of them interact with Mental Health Week and month. It's a timely reminder for us all to look after our mental health and well-being, knowing that it's been difficult at times for many people in our community, especially with the uncertainty and the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. And by the sounds of it, coming out on Friday might make a huge difference to some of our mental health. Mental Health Foundation Australia is running a range of online free virtual events this month. Residents can check it out on our website, our council website. And so there's something on every day. I went to one, I was involved in one on Saturday, and it was for truck drivers. And a lot of people might say, truck drivers, why did you attend? Truck drivers are the source of bringing our food to our communities, and they do a lot of work transporting a lot of things for us people to live and survive in society. And just to hear some of the stories that they go through and the hard times that the hours that they work and the lack of sleep has a vast impact on their mental health. We talked about the youth mental health. There's suicide prevention for youth. There's also parents, carers, Alzheimer's, dementia. And so if someone you know needs some mental health support, remembering that there's support out there, and all you need to do is look on our website, and it'll come up with all the organisations that are involved. There's also, we did a video last week on mental health and mental health awareness, and so you can click into that on the website as well. So the important thing is that, and some of the other things are the mindless signages in the parks, where you can read some of the information there. Now, that took a while to happen, but it's great to see that it's in the park. I was supposed to go to Canberra this week at Parliament House, but unfortunately it's still in lockdown, so can't attend that, so I had to do it virtual. It's in reference to support and advocacy within mental health within our communities. And I think it's just an important thing, and breaking down this stigma, and that's what I'm all about in our communities, breaking down the stigma and bringing the services to our environment. I also attended a forum for discrimination, bullying and harassment. And as I said, that involves a lot of areas of mental health and support systems as well. I got a lot out of it. It was quite amazing to the information that they gave as to where you can go for help in support, and also what is available for you. So yeah, it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. So that's all I've got to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan, for sharing that. I'll go to Councillor Moore next. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I just want to talk about something I'm very passionate about, and that's this group and volunteers in general. Acknowledgement of our volunteers and applaud them, really, I really want to do. And I'm waiting for Friday as well. I can't wait for Friday when we may be able to get back out and do meetings and get back to being on meetings face to face in the future instead of these ones online. But it's called the Cardinia Environment Coalition. What a great group of people we have in this group. The Mayor and I and Councillor Karzik and Councillor Springfield was there, the Deputy Mayor, was there at the AGM recently. And what a great group of volunteers. They had their elections, and Lindsay McNaught, Ian Chisholm, Alicia Groves, Chankiak Alia. These have been elected on the committee. Tony O'Hara, I've got to say thank you, Tony, for making the link that allowed us to be on the day, because on that meeting, because without Tony I wouldn't have been there. I know that much, so I want to thank Tony personally. Tony Ross, of course, and Sue Anderson from up Bunyip Way, which is a great group of people. But it's a really great organisation, this coalition, and we're talking about youth and what we do for youth. They educate youth on the vegetation and plants and what they see with the schools is just fantastic at Deep Creek Reserve. Not because just Deep Creek Reserve's in the Bunyip ward, not only, but that's their home, and we all made that happen. So it's really good to see. Mayor, may I just say one thing? I've got to add that Pat Canty is the former president of the coalition, and what a great advocate, what a great volunteer, and he actually established the home at Deep Creek Reserve for this coalition, and I want to thank him for being there. He had to step down as president around Christmas time last year due to ill health, a bit of health, but and I know that Lindsay McNaught and the team stepped up to take this over and keep it running. So so they had a great AGM, and I was really proud to be involved in that with the Mayor and my fellow councillors. And just one more thing, just the retiring secretary is Francis Gregorio, who has we've got a lot of passion for Francis, and former council worked on this council for many years, and what a great volunteer actually involved in this group as well. That was one, and that's a really great group. The other one was the Cardinia Group Scouts ARAP was fantastic. It's like their AGM, which is their reporting night. And the Mayor and I, sorry, Mayor, I'm taking your spot here, but what a great presentation they had that night. It was really great, wasn't it, Mr. Mayor? And I know the young man who was the MC for the night did a fantastic job. I think he might be an up-and-coming councillor in my view. He could talk as much as I do, so I think he's not doing too bad in that spot. So that was a really great night, and the presentation that they did on scouting right through from the Joeys right up to Rovers, it was a great thing to witness from us and be there too, Mr. Mayor. But the last one is the Bunyip and District Community House AGM. The manager of the community house is one of our former employees, which is Nicole Lucas, and Nicole does a fantastic job in that spot. Great group of people, and they've got a new president on the new committee now. So I'm always there to support that community house. Community houses do a fantastic job for our volunteers and our community, and I'm always going to be there for those groups. But thank you, Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to rattle on for so long. But it is a passion of mine to be with the community, as you well know. But thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore, for sharing that, and they were definitely fantastic meetings, the two that you mentioned I attended as well. Great work. Any other councillor wishing to speak to councillor reports? I see you, Councillor Quasi.
Thanks, Mayor Owen, and thanks to all councillors for their input and enthusiasm during this councillor report section. It really is a highlight for me for our ordinary meeting nights where council conducts its other business to hear everyone's passions and hear what they've been up to. It's always really nice to reflect on that. I just want to thank Councillor Radford for mentioning Community Safety Month. I've really enjoyed attending those information sessions along with both yourself and Mayor Owen. I also want to just quickly thank Victoria Police, the CFA, the SES and the Australian Drug Foundation for partnering with us to help deliver these sessions. That's been really, really great, really insightful, and I've actually learned a lot from the few sessions I've attended so far. I posted this very recently on my councillor Facebook page, and I think the community is very aware of the recent reports regarding the considerable increase of COVID cases in Cardinia. I just want to touch on, I know we're nearly out of lockdown. That's a relief for everyone. And I think Mayor Owen said this well before, but it also carries with it the reality that cases will continue to increase. When we're out of lockdown, movement will go up and cases will really continue to increase at a rapid rate. And this can have a devastating effect on the vulnerable within our community, as well as the unvaccinated. So I know everyone's over it. I know everyone's over hearing about it, but please strongly encourage your friends and family to speak to their healthcare professionals about getting vaccinated. And also just, if we can, stay safe and get tested if we have any symptoms. And I know we're all over it, but I think it's really important to continue to push that message strongly, particularly before Friday when we open up, which we're all really looking forward to. So, yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Quasi. Well said, thank you. Any other councillors wishing to speak and provide a councillor report? I see you, Councillor Ross, thank you. Mute, councillor. Thank you, you're on mute. Thanks.
Something that we don't often talk about on council is the Cardinia Connect magazine that we have. And for anyone who can see this one here, this is the very, very first one that as a councillor that I was ever in, 2009 March. And the reason we weren't in it for over the Christmas period was because we had the Black Saturday bushfires, which came about roughly just before this was about to be printed. And the amazing thing was, when I went through the whole thing of it, it was quite amazing. When we looked at Black Saturday, we had Ash Wednesday in Cardinia Shire. We had Black Saturday in Cardinia Shire. We also had many other things that have happened. And when I look through here, our Citizen of the Year was John Glazard, who is the Upper Beaconsfield head fire, the captain of the CFA up there at Upper Beaconsfield. And he went through Ash Wednesday. He actually won Citizen of the Year with the Australia Day Honours. There's even a picture in here of the Blue Ribbon events in Cardinia Shire at the time, of which we haven't been able to run since COVID. And I think we do amazingly well. Everything from the Pakenham show. There's even a picture here of someone dragging along Mr. Yakaboo, who wasn't a councillor at the time, but he's actually a clown. And he's one of our councillors, Councillor Moore, who they call Mr. Yakaboo, actually. And then you've got other pictures in here when you go through, and there's even one here of a very young Councillor Brett Owen here as a policeman, and he talks about community safety in Cardinia Shire and how he says at the time it was a safe place to work and live, especially compared to the wider Melbourne community. And actual crime and fear is something we need to be on top of all the time. When I went through it even further, it was really amazing to see all the events that we run in Cardinia Shire. It went through the aspirations too. It was really interesting. We used to do a little article here, all of the councillors at the time. And when I went through the different things that I actually put up, I talked about, basically rate capping coming one day, basically also to a second public high school in Pakenham. I talked about McGregor Road having an upgrade so it would have extra lanes in it. So I talked about disability, a motorsports facility that we haven't been able to make happen so far, but we've got close. improving community safety, enhancing youth services and activities. For anyone who has never taken any notice of this, this comes out every couple of months in your post as residents. It's a really good read. It talks about at different seasons during the year, doing different things like your bushfire maintenance. It gives you upgrades and prompts you on, you know, on hard waste. It tells you different things that council are doing. I just think it's if you're only going to read one thing from council in all your time when it comes out regularly, this is a really, really good read. It's an investment of yours. It comes to your letterbox and it will show you events that are coming up and things that council are doing. Anyway, I just wanted to share a little bit of that. It's really exciting when you look back. All I can really say is that, you know, in the beginning of your council term, you'll have dreams, visions and goals, and you never know, they might come true in the end if you keep working on it long enough and hard enough. And also too, just to note one thing, I was on council and I remember the conversation we had in relation to the old police station, when whether or not we'd buy it or whether we wouldn't. And we were looking at the area as a car park or a walk through to the main street. And we tried to do some negotiations on that sort of stuff. So anyway, it's a really good read for anyone. And I just thought that was something really interesting I came across that I think for council, it encourages us. I must say it did have here blue ribbon events in Cardinia Shire, and I think coming out of COVID, I so look forward to those events, and I know the community are as well. So anyway, hopefully the next 12 months we will have lots of those events. So just look out in your Connect magazine and you'll see those things coming up. Thank you for being so patient as we've gone on a long time, including myself.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, and I really enjoyed that nostalgia and history lesson and memory lane. Yeah, thank you for that. Any other reports, councillors? I see none. I've got my report. First of all, councillors, I've got some words and a message that was given to me from Alan Brown regarding the passing of her husband, our former and beloved colleague, Councillor Ray Brown. So with your permission, councillors, I would like to read this message from Alan, and the message reads, on behalf of myself and my family, I would like to thank Cardinia Shire Council's CEO, Carol Jeffs, Mayor Brett Owen, my wingmen Sue and Graham Moore, councillors, Cardinia Shire Council staff, in particular Elise and Jenny, and the broader community of Cardinia Shire for the support and care shown at the time of Ray's illness and untimely death. I will be forever grateful and humbled for the messages of condolences, the support, respect and care shown to me at the time of Ray's passing. Words cannot express how truly blessed and grateful I am to have such wonderful people around me. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Alan did ask me to read that, so thank you for allowing me to do that. And thanks, Alan, for those kind words. And we're thinking of you as always. Councillors, I just wanted to briefly talk about, I recently attended the AGM of the Huxwell Road Reserve Committee Asset Committee, and that was a great meeting. We saw a new committee, new president elected, and we saw the retirement of Phil Barkler, who was the president of that committee after 25 years of service. He retired from the committee and retired from being president. So we wish Phil and thank Phil, 25 years of service, servicing our community, amazing. So thank you for that. I just want to remind the community and councillors this month, as well as Community Safety Month, is Seniors Festival. We usually have a great festival, but this year it is online, so I encourage residents to partake in and participate in that festival, which is online. So if councillors can do that. All right, thank you, councillors. I will ask if there's any councillors that have a petition in which they wish to table. Councillors, any petitions? I see none. All right, councillors, moving on to notices of motion. We have 2 notices of motion tonight. The first is Councillor Cameron. I understand you have lodged notice of motion number 1068 regarding planning reforms. I will go to you, Councillor Cameron, to move and discuss your motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. My notice of motion is that Council note the Victorian Government is currently considering significant planning reforms through the Planning Reform Program 2020 to 2024. Strongly voice its concern that consultation to councils to date has been very limited. That Council notes meaningful consultation with community and with the local government on any reform proposals must occur before reforms are considered or introduced. Community consultation must remain an integral consideration for planning decisions. Community voice is critical for ensuring a transparent planning system which strengthens local neighbourhoods and economies. That Council urge the Minister for Planning to ensure full consultation with councils and community before planning reform decisions are made, and ensure that appropriate time for feedback, including consideration of council meeting cycles. That Council notes the Mayor has recently sent a letter to the Honourable Richard Wynne, MP Minister for Planning, with copies to Member for Eastern Victorian Regions and Member for Bass, advocating that councillors, council officers and the community are consulted prior to any changes being made to the planning system, and also encourages the community to provide feedback to the Victorian Government directly and to local members of Parliament, and that Council requests the CEO or her delegate coordinate with coordinate with other councils in regard to advocacy.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I note that you're moving that motion. Can I ask for a seconder, councillors? All right, I see you, Councillor Radford, first. I know there was others, but I acknowledge Councillor Radford. I'll go to Councillor Cameron to speak to her motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly, because it is getting very late. It's very important for consultation with community and with local government on any reform proposals, and it must occur before any of these reforms are considered or introduced. The community's voice must remain an integral consultation for planning decisions, and strong consultation must be a core part of major planning decisions. State government, if they take over major planning decisions, don't have the local knowledge that local councils have. And unfortunately for local council, if state government take over major planning decisions, local government will lose money in relation to these decisions being taken away from local council. The other thing is that the MAV, on behalf of local government, is advocating to the state government for greater transparency regarding the proposed planning changes and for extensive community engagement with council and the community prior to the changes being made. There's going to be 3 categories of planning process the state government would undertake to see permits potentially issued within 3 months of receiving them. That's, of course, is everything goes according to plan. So limited information to this point in time has been afforded to local government and council officers, and they've been advised that what has been provided has been confidential. It's the understanding that the state government is targeting a legislative change late 2021 and for these to be fully operated by mid-2022. And yeah, so that's the basis for my my notice of motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I will go to Councillor Radford to speak a second. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cameron, for bringing this to us. I have had a good read through it. I note that the CEO had advised us of this previously, and so she had started advocating with other councils, which was really, really good. But you really brought it to council for us to get a good understanding of what this planning reform was going to do. And as far as I see it, it doesn't protect local government's ability to decide on planning applications. It takes away that money that comes with that, but it also takes away the ability for the community to be consulted, and that's where it doesn't really sit well with me. So I appreciate you bringing this notice of motion, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Radford. I'll go to other councillors to speak either for or against the motion. I see Councillor Kowarczyk first.
Thanks, Mayor Owen, and I want to thank Councillor Cameron for her work and insight in this space. It's actually been really, really well appreciated by me and other councillors, and I don't disagree with anything that Councillor Radford or Councillor Cameron have said with regards to the problems with the process that's happened so far. Through Councillor Cameron's efforts, councillors and officers are more aware of the potential changes brought forward by the state government. I believe this notice of motion has a lot of good points, and the overall goal is in line with my way of thinking. However, I will not be supporting this, as I believe it could be considered superfluous. Councillor Radford mentioned before that our CEO and council officers are already doing work in this space. So the work that's being requested by the notice of motion, including the advocacy regarding the lack of consultation, you mentioned, Councillor Cameron, the Municipal Association of Victoria, and other local government agencies that have made submissions on behalf of all councils. Reading through those submissions, they cover nearly all of the same points raised in this notice of motion. Now, there is genuine concern that these potential changes are racing through at the speed of light, and something you've noted, and I really appreciate you for enlightening me around this topic. However, we know for a fact that our CEO and senior managers have discussed this with councillors and are already engaging with the state government where appropriate to deliver feedback on our behalf and echo these concerns. So I just want to reiterate that I don't disagree with Councillor Cameron's notice of motion whatsoever. However, I don't think the notice of motion necessarily adds anything to the work that we know council officers are doing under delegation. In my opinion, it's not good practice to vote for a notice of motion if it doesn't necessarily add to or change what is already happening. Officers work for the benefit of council under delegation all the time, and I'm mindful of placing parameters on them which may not ultimately work in the best interest of council and residents long term. It is my belief that on these reforms, we stick to the advice of officers, and if further advocacy is needed or can have a significant impact, then that advice will come and we can act on that in due course. Now, again, I want to reiterate that I thank Councillor Cameron for her work in this space, and to be honest, I had no idea about it before she brought it to our attention, and that is to be commended. But I just want to advise that I will not be supporting this notice of motion not because I don't support it, but because I think it's superfluous to the actions of council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kowarczyk. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? First of all, I see there's a number, but first of all, Councillor Davies first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I do have numerous concerns with this notice of motion, and I will be speaking against the motion. I had advised Councillor Cameron of my intent to do this prior to the meeting. Councillors, we were advised last Thursday that Council's General Manager at Livable Communities, Ms Rosick, had been in discussions with the Victorian Government's Executive Director of Planning Reform during the week. So this is evidence that a high-level consultation is presently happening. A notice of motion is a major action for a councillor to take, and if voted for, serves to enact immediate local law. As it stands, this motion and endorsement of it would mean that we councillors, none of whom are qualified communications professionals, approaches the state saying we don't approve of their consultation processes on their own projects. They haven't asked for feedback, and we tell them that we want further consultation, but we know consultation is currently in progress. There's no evidence that the community is not being listened to or not being supported. Why, as a council, would we choose to make the relationship between senior officers more difficult with what could be perceived as an aggressive political action? Is that going to lead to improved outcomes? And is that a good use of our powers? Enacting a local law that says our CEO needs to collaborate with other councils, Ms. Jeffs and her staff already do this daily on a range of matters. And why enact a local law which says that council officers must encourage residents to contact the state government? I consider my role is to represent my constituents, not to tell them what to do. I do believe council can still acknowledge the planning reforms. And so, should Councillor Cameron's notice of motion be lost, I would like to foreshadow that I would like to raise an alternative motion. My alternative motion will simply be that Council notes the Victorian Government is currently considering significant planning reform through the Planning Reform Program 2020 to 2024, and 2, requests that the CEO prepares a report for the March 2022 Council briefing on the status of planning reforms, Council interests, and makes recommendations for Council consideration. As you are aware, my regular employment outside council is within a strategic planning division in local government, and it's highly technical work. Planning reform is significant, and these reforms, they're being delivered over a 4-year period in a $111 million project. There are over 45 actions. There is project governance in place to secure that sort of funding. This will include detailed risk management and stakeholder consultation plans. So, as a councillor providing strategic oversight and an industry peer, I have full consideration of the actions of our appointed CEO and her staff, and I am confident in their work protecting the interests of Cardinia Shire Council. But we can use a notice of motion to increase our own awareness and provide more oversight, as this is highly significant work. So I would ask you to consider the ramifications of this motion, and I confirm, I foreshadow that should Councillor Cameron's motion be lost, I would like to raise an alternate motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. I do note that you're foreshadowing a motion, an alternate motion, if this motion before us is lost. Okay, I do note that foreshadowment. I go to Councillor Springfield to speak next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And look, thank you to all my councillors who have spoken on this so far. Look, I would like to, to date, I fully support Councillor Kowalskik's position on this. Like, I feel exactly the same as himself, where I don't disagree with the intent behind the notice of motion and the points in there, but I don't agree that this notice of motion is necessary to achieve the outcome that is hoped for, because I believe that it is being worked by officers in the background already. And there's, for myself personally, there's a lot of unknowns to this, which I'm not comfortable supporting something if I don't know the ramifications of it. Exactly. Like, and I think there's a bit of speculation within the environment, the political environment, of what these planning reforms might entail specifically, and we don't know what that is specifically. So I can't really speak against them or advocate against them till I know for them. But I do completely agree with the sentiment that council wants to be informed and consulted, and community wants to be informed and consulted in planning decisions that are going to impact on how it affects our local communities. But to note that these may be major planning reforms that they are undertaking here, but planning reforms happen each year in state government that go unnoticed. There's an evolution, so it's not like it's something that's never happened before. It's just, for me personally, it's a bit of an unknown. So I think Councillor Jack Kowalczyk really summarised it perfectly for me of how I feel, which is I'm not against what Councillor Cameron is putting forward here, and I really support that she has a passion for this, and the investigation that she's put forward of her understanding towards it, is commendable. But mine is a place of uncertainty. And when it comes to the entire notice of motion as well, I just would like to point out it's a little bit ambiguous, some of the last points, like point 6 and point 7, and like to encourage community to provide feedback, the Victorian government directly. but what feedback are we encouraging them to provide? And so it's for something, should we be encouraging them to investigate and understand, or encourage them to ask for further engagement so they understand what we are talking about, which I don't believe the government's at a point to share this, or we will know about it. Now, perhaps they'll get a point where they'll just share it and they'll tell us this is it. There's no consultation happening, which I don't agree with. And I do agree we need more consultation, but it's just, for me, I can't support it. And it's not because I'm against it, Councillor Cameron. It's just I'm uncertain. So when in doubt, I think I have to vote in the safer position here. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? I see none. Oh, just in time, Councillor Ryan. Just in time. I'll go to you. Thank you, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Cameron, for bringing this up. It's always an important subject of where we stand in the middle of between what officers are working on and the information they're given, as well as what the government is really willing to tell us. And we're in the middle because we're there to represent our community and our residents and giving them information that is going to affect them. I think my concerns that, is the government going to be transparent to our officers to give them the right information and not give mixed signal information? I think that's one of the things that always falls down sometimes between our governments, our local, state and federal. We don't always, we all have a different interpretation. We all have different thoughts and fears of how we think it's going to be. But it's not necessarily what's written as we read. But I am going to give support to Councillor Cameron, because I think her bringing up this subject is a subject that we need to have a discussion about, and continually have a discussion with staff, with everyone that's involved, so that we these planning reform changes are not going to affect our community in such a way where they don't have involvement as well. And so I'll leave it at that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I see Councillor Moore. Go ahead, Councillor Moore. Oh, we've got more now coming.
Oh,
Go, Councillor Moore.
More or more people?
More councillors wanting to speak.
Okay. Sorry, Mayor, I hate to extend this meeting. Whilst I can understand the intent of Councillor Cameron in all respects to Councillor Cameron, I can see the intent of this notice of motion. I just find it complicated, and I find it a little bit politically motivated, and that's the bit that I have trouble coming to grips with. And so, therefore, unfortunately, I will not be supporting it in its present state as written. It's just too driven away from our own staff. I think our own staff are handling this in all good stead, and I believe that this notice of motion would possibly be doubling up on what we're already doing here. And the way it's written is just all these points are just very poignant. Even though you're trying to get the point across, I gather that, but that's just how I feel, that's all, and I won't be supporting this, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I'll go to Councillor Ross to speak next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's really important when we have a look at new things that are coming in. We look to the communication that people have, the transparency they have. I must say, local government is the closest level of government to the community, and we are the very first port of call that if things don't go right, they come and ask you. And as a single ward councillor, you are going to be asked if there's planning adjustments in your area. Why is this so? I must say, I don't see ministers and departments expecting less than communities speaking up about things, having letters sent to them about, can I have more information? Can I have a bit more talking, a bit more transparency? I just think a message to them that we would like a little bit more in this area is not out of the pale, and I don't think it would disrespect them. They would expect it to come from them. If we were just ignorant and just didn't take any notice at all, stuff just goes through. I think a letter is a low-cost thing. You send it to ministers, you send it to departments and those sort of things, so we can actually have a bigger conversation about all of this, what it means, just like we do with the rail and things that we look at the moment. We're looking at train lines, we're looking at stations and the whole lot of it. We're happy to talk with them about what we'd like on behalf of the community. On some things we're happy to talk about, and other things we say, well, we just got to trust and let it go. Well, communication and transparency, they need to hear from us, and I just don't think this is an insulting thing. I think it's a very low cost thing, and it sends them a message that we would like to meet with them on a bigger level to have a better understanding. And if they have great understanding about this and they want to explain to us what it's all about, I'm sure we're all very rational and we'll listen to it and we'll have an understanding of where they're coming from. Anyway, that's my point of view. I'll be supporting a letter with some information going forward, and I'd like to hear some more information around this space. I do appreciate behind the scenes council officers are talking about these things, but we have a big community consultation process in Cardinia Shire that we often talk about, this council and the last one. And I just think we need to be really consistent with that, not just for some things, but for all the things that we get involved in. Anyway, that's just my point of view. I'm only one person. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers? There being none, I will go to Councillor Cameron to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Radford and other councillors for your discussion. As councillors, we are elected representatives and officers of the Crown, and we must always be concerned about matters of governance, particularly when it affects democratic process, such as the ability for community and their representatives to be heard through the consultative process. The other thing I'd like to point out is that the responsible authority for various categories of planning permits is being determined, and local government may cease to be the responsible authority for some categories. If that occurs, the community will lose its third-party right to appeal for state-determined permits. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. So, councillors, I will put Councillor Cameron's notice of motion 1068 to a vote. All those in favour, please indicate by a show of hands. Thank you. Those against? I note that that notice of motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. I will go to your second notice of motion, Councillor Cameron. Notice of motion 1069 in your name. I believe you might wish to update council regarding your notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I do wish to update in relation to this notice of motion. I wish to read the notice of motion, and then I will withdraw the notice of motion for debate at the November council meeting.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
So the notice of motion being that council notes the Victorian government's intent to decriminalise sex work in Victoria and express its concern regarding the following: the decriminalisation of street-based sex work in most locations without providing clarity regarding where it will be permitted and the scale and the impact for residential areas. Altering the sex work licensing and registration system established by the Sex Work Act 1994, including the separation distance required between sex work businesses and particular land uses, including dwellings. Brothels being able to apply for liquor licence subject to the standard liquor licensing framework established under the Liquor Control Reform Act 1998. Not having a statewide regulatory framework for the sex work industry and not providing details about resourcing that will be provided to respond to a new class of workplace and protect vulnerable workers and the community. That council voices its concerned that consultation was only open for 2 weeks, which is inadequate to allow elected representatives to engage with their communities and for meaningful feedback to be provided. Emphasises that meaningful consultation with community and with local government on any proposals must occur before any changes are considered or introduced, and community consultation must form an integral consideration for any changes to the sex work industry. Request the Minister for Consumer Affairs to ensure full consultation with councils and the community before any decisions are made. Ensure appropriate time provided for feedback, including consideration of council meeting cycles. To require that adequate and long-term funding be available for an appropriate local service and for the purpose of supporting health and safety, advocacy, health promotion, legal support and community education with regards to the rights and wellbeing of sex workers. Provide additional evidence including health impact statement, economic impact statement, case studies and criminology assessment in regard to the proposed changes. Rights to the Minister for Consumer Affairs and the Shadow Minister for Consumer Affairs to advocate Council's position with a copy of that letter sent to all local members of Parliament whose electorate covers Cardinia. Request the CEO or delegates to coordinate with other councils and the Municipal Association of Victoria in regard to any further advocacy opportunities. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, thank you, Councillor Cameron, and unfortunate timing of that clock, I think, was ringing. So good on you for persevering. But I do note that it's your intention to withdraw this item for discussion and debate for today's meeting, but your intention is to table this for the November meeting. So we acknowledge that. So therefore, councillors, we won't be debating this item at this time. Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillors, we do have 2 community questions. We have received a question, first of all, from Cheryl Billing-Smith. I will refer the question to the Chief Executive Officer to read and then answer. Thank you, Ms. Jeffs.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Billing-Smith, for your questions. So I'll read each question and then the answer. So question 1 is, what were the initial conditions of the initial subdivision permit for Parklea in their endeavour to subdivide the property on which the historical officer kiln is located? The answer is the planning permit gave approval for subdivision of land into 53 residential lots and created an additional lot of 0.17 hectares, which included the heritage kiln. The planning permit held a large number of conditions, and I'll refer to the condition in regard to the historic kiln. The condition required a land management plan which provides for, amongst other things, protection of the heritage kiln and identified construction methods around the kiln to minimise vibration, rolling and installation of a construction fence. A conservation management plan was submitted which made recommendations regarding the structural stability of elements of the kiln, interpretive signage and material, and works to undertake on the shedding surrounding the kiln. Question 2 is, in the beginning, there would have been a dialogue between Council and Parklea as to how they could gain a permit, and in that dialogue there would have been a discussion about the kiln and how to maintain or restore it to its previous significant heritage value. So I can confirm that it's normal practice for planning officers and developers to discuss different aspects of an application during the permit process. And that certainly occurred in this case, and the planning permit condition mentioned in question 1 and the conservation management plan was the outcome of this process. Question 3, what were those discussions and who held those discussions and who signed off on the subdivision at the very beginning that led to the final offer of Parklea to Council for $1 for the site and the problems associated with its retention as a heritage site? So thank you for this question, but I do want to correct something which I'll explain as I'll go through in the answer. So this permit was signed off under delegation by Council's project planner urban development, urban development in 2016. So there was a gap between the signing off of that planning permit and the offer to sell council the land with the kiln on it for $1, which only came up some years later, and council considered that offer, the $1 offer, in March 2020, so some 4 years after the planning permit was issued. Council actually resolved to accept the offer of $1, subject to a range of conditions. Unfortunately, Parklea did not accept council's agreement to the purchase of the land for $1. Council officers continue to take all planning inquiries and planning permit applications to do with the heritage kiln seriously and understand the importance of this historical site to the community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CO. Councillors, we've received a question from Andrew McNabb, and I'll read out the question and respond. The question is, can councillors Owen, Springfield, Ross, Ryan, Radford, Cameron, Davies, Moore, Kowalczyk all confirm they live and their prime residence is in Cardinia Shire, yes or no? I acknowledge Mr McNabb's question and I will respond. I will not be asking councillors individually, but can confirm that the CEO has it on record that 8 of the 9 councillors currently reside within the municipality. Regarding the 9th councillor, it would be inappropriate for me to disclose councillors' personal information, but the CEO has advised that this is to be a temporary personal situation and has confirmed that all councillors are eligible to hold office within Cardinia Shire as per the Local Government Act. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. That does conclude tonight's meeting. Thank you for attending. Before closing the meeting, and as this will be the last meeting I'll be chairing as Mayor, I would like to thank you all, councillors, for your assistance and input into our meetings over the last 12 months. This has been a very trying time, not only due to the COVID pandemic, but also with a new council being elected last year and the recent by-election due to the unfortunate passing of former councillor Ray Brown. I've appreciated the respect that you have shown me over this trying time and trust that you will show the same respect to the new mayor being elected in a few weeks. I also want to thank the council officers for their assistance and also the community during a very challenging 12 months. At the November council meeting or possibly December meeting of councillors, I intend to, through the council delegates, have a bit of a reflection of my mayoral year at that appropriate time. So thanks, councillors. In closing, I do again remind any resident that may be concerned by the current COVID restrictions to check out council's website in regard to any services that are available or any other assistance that we can provide. Please take care. We look forward to Friday in the coming weeks ahead as we still continue to experience these difficult times. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for everyone for tuning into this meeting. I now declare the meeting closed. Thanks, everyone.
Well done, Mayor.